What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world. It's been a long time. I know that y'all been missing us. I know that we didn't do a review on the Batman or on Boba Fett or on all these other stuff that I probably should have done, but your boy was busy. Everyone gets busy in life. It's okay. We're back now. And joining me today is a cast of podcast veterans that, you know some of them and you love a lot of them. But there's one person that is making their return after 6 years, and I couldn't be more excited to have them on the show once again. And today we're going to be talking about the latest entry in the greatest saga ever told. But before we get into all that, got to introduce who's coming in. We, of course, have Diego, a.k.a. Storm Soldat, the former esports manager at JStorm, and all-around Dodo social media master. Haven't seen this guy since Star Wars Visions. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I had a nice, relaxing day. I,
Mm-hmm.
I had some introspection on myself and on Obi-Wan,
Wow.
both related. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you've done some meditation. Was good. Anything you want to drop some little updates for people since they haven't seen you in a while? Anything?
I mean, nothing really new. I've just been chilling, like occasionally doing some stuff for Beyond the Summit, and
Mm-hmm.
then just playing WoW.
Well,
So,
you've been chilling, man. You've always been chilling, and of course, you know her, you love her, a podcast favorite, the only person who actually knows what they're talking about, and she just graduated, and now she's the production coordinator at Riot Games, doing nothing but big moves, making big moves. We haven't seen her since Cobra Kai season 4. It is Abby. How are you doing today?
Hello. May the force be with you, Adam.
Oh my goodness, may the force be with you too, Abby. It's great to have you back on. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm playing a lot of Fire Emblem.
Okay,
That's
okay.
kind of my life
Uh-huh,
right
uh-huh.
now. I watched Boba Fett. I watched the Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
I binged the Boba Fett before this show. I was not watching it.
Oh, it's okay. I was late to Boba Fett too.
Okay, I feel good.
And the new job is treating you well. You seem really happy there.
We love it. Yes, love Riot. We're doing
Oh,
great stuff. Great company. Learning a lot, doing good things. I really like video games.
video
Yeah.
games are great.
Yeah.
I've already told this to Abby many times. I'm just so happy for you. You deserve everything,
I
Abby. So
appreciate you, Adam. I
I
think you're really
appreciate you
cool.
too. I appreciate you too a lot. Okay, and finally, the prodigal son returns. After 6 years, he's changed the game in LA. We haven't seen this man since Rogue One, a Star Wars story, 2016. It is Jason, dude. I don't even know where to begin. How are you doing today? What have you been up to? Let the people know what you've been up to before we get into this review, man. It's been so long.
Well, I gotta say, I start with it's an absolute honor. Yeah, it's been since Rogue One, which when you told me 6 years, it kind of blew my mind that time has gone so fast. I since then I've moved to LA, where I have been a comedian slash comedy show producer. So if you guys want free shows and free drinks, you come to LA and hit me up, and we'll laugh and drink together. Right on.
Hell yeah,
Thank
man.
you for having me.
Dude, Jason, of course, it's an honor to have you on, and I'm sure you're going to talk more about that at the end when it comes to shout outs. I'm sure the people want to follow you and see what kind of all the work that you're doing. I know I'm definitely going to check it out once I'm in LA again, because I'm definitely was a little bummed that I missed it out the last time I was there.
No, don't be silly.
Jason, well, it's gonna happen. Don't worry. So today we're gonna be talking about Obi-Wan. It's a big subject because Star Wars is always kind of a big subject. But before we get into that, I think it's super important that we kind of just establish where all of us are. So I'll start off with Jason, just because it's been a while since we've heard from you, man. Obviously, last time you were here, we talked about Rogue One. I guess it's been a couple years. How has your opinion on Star Wars changed, particularly the Disney era, and I guess the prequels, right? Because Obi-Wan is so much of it is a love letter to the prequels in that way. So just tell us a little bit about how you feel about Star Wars nowadays, in particular.
The current status of Star Wars. Well, I guess I should probably start with that. I actually like The Last Jedi, sans Canto Bight, which I know is a big chunk of it. But if you really take that out, it's a good movie. I gotta
Ugh.
say,
Adam,
Canto Bight it's a lot. It's a big bite to take. I get it. But I do like Last Jedi, so I know I'm probably in a weird camp here. But
Sure.
overall, I feel like there has been a steep decline.
Hmm.
Um, I am a fan of the prequels, even more so now, and we'll talk about that later because I rewatched 2 and 3 just recently. And I watch a lot of YouTube retrospectives. I've actually been
Okay.
like, it coincided with this. It was perfect because I guess Obi-Wan came out, a lot of YouTube retrospectives came out, and I kind of went a deep dive with a lot of those, and it made me like just love and appreciate certain things. Like fucking, are we allowed to curse, by the way?
Yes,
Oh, I should
totally
ask that
okay.
before.
You're fine.
Hayden Christensen's performance, perfect. I wouldn't change a dang thing about Hayden Christensen's.
Well, we'll definitely talk about that later. Trust me, I agree. So keep going.
Fantastic. But yeah, overall, I'm not happy with the current last since Return of Skywalker. What was the last one?
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker onward. Not really a fan. I do like Mando season 1 though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I respect all of it for sure. And for those of you who want to go back, you can hear our 5-hour review on Star Wars: The Last Jedi. If you're that curious, it was 5 hours. If you're really bored and just have nothing else better to do, you can hear literally it was like a room full of people give an entire review scene breakdown of that movie. But anyway, regardless, we'll go to you, Abby. You know, you were here for Star Wars Visions. You talked a little bit about how much Star Wars means to you, especially growing up. I know that you've you know, you're a big Star Wars fan, Abby. But I guess there's been a couple things since Visions happened, you know, and I'm super curious to hear kind of like where you're at with the franchise now.
I'm tired, Adam.
Same here.
Oh boy, this is gonna be a great review.
I love lightsabers. I love the Force. I love little green Yoda. But you know what? I feel like I have fatigue. And I think that is so sad to me because like we were talking even about this podcast and I was like, you know, it's like Disney is, I don't know, run the gambit when I'm like not excited to almost talk about one of the things that like used to make me like super excited all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I just thought that's a very broad paintbrush statement, but I have to say Obi-Wan, not so much Boba Fett, but Obi-Wan in particular, I think did a really good job for me at least of, I think this generation, we on this podcast, we have a lot of 20-somethings here. So that prequel generation where we grew up with that as our franchise, even more so than the original trilogy, I thought was really powerful. And so I did have a blast with Obi-Wan. A few things to change here and there, but overall, it was very interesting the amount of nostalgia of like the 2000s core that it somehow just like seemed to bring out.
Yeah. There's a lot to definitely we're gonna focus on there because I definitely agree with you about like, you know, just being our generation growing up the prequels and how that impacts like how we view Star Wars in a lot of ways. I'm definitely keen to dive in onto that, but let's go with you, Diego. I know you had some pretty strong feelings on Book of Boba Fett. And I remember when Kenobi was premiering, I unfortunately saw a little bit later, you were always asking me like, oh, did you see the episode? What happened? And unfortunately, just because I wasn't keeping up, I couldn't really, you know, talk to you about it. So I guess like, where are you at with Star Wars now? Because you've been, you know, between Bad Batch, between Rebels and Resistance and Mando and now Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi, it's been kind of all over. So where are you at the moment?
I have opinions.
Right.
So I think my biggest like the angle I want to draw from, or the angle I want to look at things from, is like how I view Star Wars is the movies are the most inferior media of Star Wars.
Interesting. Okay.
Not by like a massive margin.
Okay.
But I think video games are like far and away the best way to interact with and like enjoy Star Wars. And you know why? Because I think like KOTOR 2, for example, I think is like an amazing deconstruction of like what makes Star Wars good and bad.
Right.
And on that note, one of my favorite YouTubers actually like just did a review on KOTOR 2 and brought something up about how something like people who are like affected by the prequels like negatively and positively. And I think that a lot of that, weirdly enough, ties into the conversation about Obi-Wan, because it is very aimed at the people who enjoyed the prequels, right?
Right.
And there's like this like weird what's the word? Like pessimism when it comes to like anything prequel related for a lot of people, especially people that grew up with the original trilogy.
Right.
So it was very weird for me my dad and I, like, we're both opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like my dad like is a sequel, or not a sequel, like huge fan of the original trilogy,
Right.
and just like not despises the prequels, but like does not appreciate them like the way, like Abby was saying, like us, this generation of people does. And I thought it was extremely strange how my dad actually liked Obi-Wan way more than I did.
Huh.
Um,
Okay.
and I think this has partly to do with like the perspective I've had, that like I have access to way more Star Wars media than he does, because like I need to get him to watch the shows, right? And he's just like not played any of the games since the fucking MMO from 2003.
Star Wars
Right?
Galaxy. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, Galaxy, amazing, by the way. Like nothing has come close to it. Anyway, um, to to encapsulate all this together, I thought it was a waste of potential, Obi-Wan, overall. And
Okay.
I think overall with Disney Star Wars, I will say I actually very much enjoyed The Last Jedi. So you're not alone, Jason.
Huzzah!
I 100% agree. I don't like, the only thing I remember from Canto Bight was like the horses just like running over the casino. I don't remember jack shit about it besides the kid. I thought the actually, like, the ending shot was actually really cool. I thought
Which
that
they
was
never
like,
went back into. They never
yeah,
addressed
yeah.
that.
I think like a lot of The Last Jedi looks worse in hindsight
Sure.
because Rise of Skywalker didn't do anything with it. And also the movie on its own is just worse as part of a trilogy because the trilogy was not planned out ahead of time.
Exactly.
Right.
They retconned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They retconned on a retcon on a retcon.
Right.
Yeah, and like before I go off on another tangent, I think like, again, it's weird how divisive this is, because like my dad fucking hated The Last Jedi and was like, and like cheered in Rise of Skywalker when they undid. I mean, he still thinks Rise of Skywalker is shit, but he was like,
Okay.
he like cheered when like Luke caught the lightsaber.
lightsaber?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to treat it with respect.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
whatever. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
missed the whole point of what all that was about. Anywho, there's like,
Yes.
I think like Disney Star Wars has like these glimpses of brilliance, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like they'll do a thing and just like go nowhere with it. And I think that happened in Obi-Wan specifically like 6 times. Like once in each episode, actually.
Right. Right.
So yeah, we'll go into more detail, but
Wow.
I have like a lot of thoughts, and like this series, and Boba Fett. Boba Fett just left a horrible aftertaste.
Right.
This series left like a weird one. Like I liked it and I wanted to like it, but it just like didn't do enough for me.
Wow. Okay. So this is gonna be a really interesting discussion, because it seems like we've got people who like The Last Jedi, people who have different opinions on where Star Wars is. I think what Diego said about how the movies are the worst form of Star Wars media is certainly a hot take. But having talked to Diego pretty in depth about this stuff, I definitely see where he's coming from. For me, what I'll say is the Disney Star Wars era has certainly been a mixed bag, to say the least. I love Mando. I think it's great. Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time. I saw that with like, so it's just amazing. One of the best third acts I've ever seen in a movie, hands down. So good. I think Jedi Fallen Order is actually one of my favorite games of all time too. Not, I think it's the best, but I really enjoyed playing it. And honestly, I think that the best stories that have come out of the Disney Star Wars era have nothing to do with any sort of show or movie. It's actually the comic books. All 3 Darth Vader series are actually phenomenal. The Star Wars series by Jason Aaron is great, and the Lando miniseries is probably one of the best Star Wars stories ever told. And so it's a very, very mixed bag, and I think that that's part of why it seems like Star Wars in general today is so polarizing among fans in both new and old, like we were talking about before. So many differing opinions, and certainly after Book of Boba Fett, I was like, all right, guys, you know what? I don't know about this no more. Like I was definitely pretty disappointed about it. But then I saw the trailer for Kenobi, and I was like, you know what? It was like that scene from Rick and Morty, like, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
I remember us having the same reaction, Adam. Like,
yeah.
Like I was like, before I watched the trailer, I'm like, I have 0 expectations. I'm gonna be
Yes.
disappointed.
Yes.
And then we watched it, and I'm like, they fucking got me.
Yeah.
Like Duel of the, like I fall for the shittiest bait. They just play Duel of the Fates, and like you said, it's like the Rick and Morty clip. Like
Exactly.
Which
I'm in.
they never used.
I know. Don't.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There was a lot, right? And so going through the show, I was really cautiously optimistic about it, right? And of course, as always with all of our reviews, full spoiler warning. That's what we're always going to be talking about when it comes to our reviews. So if you haven't seen Kenobi and you don't want to be spoiled, definitely don't watch this review, listen to this review, whatever. But like, going through the show, right, everyone's trying to figure out what is next for Disney Star Wars, right? There's no movies on the horizons, right? All it is it's going to be about the shows on Disney Plus. We know that Taika Waititi is making a movie, but that's not going to be happening for a while. So it's all about these live action series, and sure, everyone loves Mando, but Book of Boba Fett was really, I would say, their first really big misstep when it comes to Disney Plus content, because near universally, I would say Mando season 1 and season 2 were loved by the fans, which is definitely not something you heard since maybe Rogue One in terms of praise. So it was a very, very unique kind of situation when it comes to Lucasfilm. And in developing this story, it actually came out of, my understanding is that it came out of the era where they're trying to make all these a spin-off Star Wars movies, right? We got Solo and Rogue One. They're going to make an Obi-Wan movie, a Star Wars story, but because of the lackluster performance and seemingly middling reviews of Solo, they decided they would go away from the movies and kind of just like remake it into a series. And I think in a lot of ways, you can kind of see the DNA of that. I'll be honest, I think that the show is a little too long. It feels like there's a lot of filler in some points. So certainly I could see where that kind of comes from. But in doing that, though, they actually chose Deborah Chow, who directed some of the best episodes of The Mandalorian, to direct this entire series, every single episode, which I think was a pretty cool idea in terms of giving everything a distinct identity instead of having multiple directors on the series. But I guess like one thing I'd love to ask all of you when it comes to, I guess, that approach and kind of thinking about Obi-Wan was, before we even get into the review, is like, is this actually a show that any of you wanted? Were you saying like, you know what, like I really need to see something about Obi-Wan? Your boy Ewan McGregor is one of my favorites. I need to see more of him. Like, is this really what you were looking for when it comes to Star Wars?
If we gotta say something, I think talking about that space in between Revenge of the Jedi and A New Hope, you're like, okay, so Ben goes off to Tatooine and he's in his cave for
Right.
how old is Luke at the beginning? 19. He's in his cave for 19 years. Cool.
Right.
What's gonna happen? I remember literally DMing you and I was like, what? Because you have these but you have these parameters, right? Of the constraints of the world. So we know where he's gonna end up and we know where he starts, but we don't know what happens in between. And so that's really where Obi-Wan, I think, had the fun of it. And I guess that was, I have to say, but at first I was a little incredulous because I do think, I was like, okay, he's gonna end up back in the desert. Like,
right.
What is gonna happen in that space that's gonna like shock and awe? And I think I was along for a fun ride.
Okay, all right. What about you, Jason? Was this something that you were really hungry for?
I was like, I was and wasn't, but is anyone a toy collector here? Action figure collector?
I'm not, unfortunately.
Anyone here? Because I'll show you my room, but I don't want to be embarrassed. But there was Hot Toys, which is like 1/6 scale, so like 12-inch figures. They made this one line called like Myths or something. This was before Disney. Oh, Disney acquired Star Wars, but it was before any of the real product came out.
Okay.
And they made this one Obi-Wan Kenobi where it's called Myths, and it was Obi-Wan in between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. Oh, not Force
Awakens. A New Hope.
No, not Force Awakens. And
not Force Awakens.
There's a big gap.
It was like really cool mixture of Ewan McGregor and I'm forgetting
Alex Guinness.
Yeah. And combined with them, and it was like this really haggard Obi-Wan, and he's got like a bunch of like equipment on. And he looked like a badass, but he's also like in hiding. Like there was like a lot of myths of like what's going on here. He had like pieces of a stormtrooper on him. Like, yeah, he was a general, but like he had like a stormtrooper helmet on his like waist, and you're like, what? It added a lot of questions of like, what has he been doing in between that time? And ever since seeing that figure, I never owned it, but ever since seeing it, I was genuinely curious of like where it would go next. And then when they announced that it was gonna be a series, and the way that things have been going, and yeah, like Abby was saying about the parameters, there's a lot of things they can't really encroach on to keep continuity, and I don't think Disney cares about continuity anymore. And I'll get into it later. That's my biggest complaint with the show is the implications that this has on Obi-Wan as a person, because this kind of ruins him for me, to be honest. He ruins his whole being and wherewithal, completely gone. That's how I feel about that.
Okay. All right. Well, That's definitely a really, really unique perspective. Diego just posted some of the pictures of the figure in the chat. That's actually a really, really
right on.
cool. I'd never seen that before. Abby,
That is,
or excuse
that
me,
is dope.
Diego, go ahead.
Shit.
Thanks for sending that.
I had a yeah no I was really curious. I'm like I gotta find this, but I had a thing and I forget. But echoing what Jason said, I empathize with that. I don't agree with it 100%, but I do agree that this kind of like changes how you view Obi-Wan. Because I think like we'll talk about it. I'm sure like in the first or second episode, whichever one it happens, where he just like straight up lets this other Jedi die. Um, and it wasn't even justified in the way that was like he is protecting Luke at all costs. It was just like, and he can't reveal himself. It was just like he's straight up that broken that he can't
Right.
help this guy like at all. And I wish that they spent more time exploring that. But yeah, I mean, like to go back to the original question, like I don't know. I like honestly, like if you told me that this series was coming out like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been way more excited about it.
Right.
Because there, like, spoilers for Rebels, but like, there's literally an episode or two where Ben Kenobi is there. And like he's like obviously he's very important. He's Ben Kenobi, and all of this was kind of like I had those scenes in the back of my mind, both as like a yeah, I mean, and obviously like a New Hope, and it's like yeah, you know where he's gonna end up, you know he's still gonna be here, but knowing what happens in Rebels, like what could he possibly, you know, because what happens in Rebels has like very very important implications on like everything, right?
Right.
Not just the stuff like with Obi-Wan, but just like everything in Rebels.
Right.
So to kind of be stuck in this like really weird like this show felt like limbo to me. So it was like I'm not like I don't see how this story can be exciting at all. I could see how it would be like intriguing and like captivating because you could tell a story about this old broken Jedi with PTSD.
Right.
But that is like way better suited to a movie, which when you hear this is supposed to be a movie makes way more sense. I think I like and apparently it was supposed to be three. Unless I misunderstood, but something about it being a trilogy or something like that. So to me, it's like yeah, if this came out like right after Solo, I would have been super excited to watch it.
Sure.
Because Solo had Darth Maul appear, and I don't remember if the Darth Maul appearance was before or after the Rebels thing where his story concludes.
Yeah. Right.
But I still like even seeing that, I was still like super excited. I'm like, holy shit, Maul, and then like, oh, if you told me there was Kenobi movie coming out right after that, I would have been like, wow, fuck yeah, I want to watch that. They're probably gonna show the scene between him and Maul in live action,
Right.
as like a just fuck it, why not? And this is where I think like Star Wars is best is when it's just like this is the first time I've been watching Red Letter Media actually when it for the Obi-Wan review.
Okay.
And I really like how they put it when stuff is Star Wars porn. Like the third act of Rogue One was just straight up Star Wars porn, and I think that's when the movies are at their best. So again, I want another kind of tangent, but like literally, I was not excited to see this show because I was so afraid of what would happen.
Okay.
Could I add to that real quick?
I was going to say, Jason, you look like you want to say something, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so happy you brought up Red Letter Media. Everyone should watch all their content. They're great. But when you mentioned Darth Maul in Solo, that was the point where I knew there were cracks in the Disney system. Because they were doing this Marvel formula where they're teasing you things and giving you like weird connections. Like we'll never see what happens with Game of Thrones. What's her name?
Daenerys.
Clarke. Yeah, Daenerys, but Emilia Clarke's character. We'll never know. I don't think she's ever coming back. So her connection to Maul, that's never gonna come to fruition. So that whole like teaser at the end just seems so ham-handed, and to like give you like an inch, like you gotta watch the next one, something cool's coming. It that at that point I knew things were going for the worse.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my inclusion to but I agree with Diego.
Yeah. I feel like a little bit in the middle. I would say like I could definitely see there were things I wanted to learn about. Right, like I wanted to learn more about how he, like Diego said, how he goes from pretty like depressed, traumatized, broken at the end of episode 3 to like, pretty optimistic, jolly guy in episode 4. He's like, hey, hello there. But at the same time, I also wanted to know, right,
Boy.
like at the end of episode 3, they talk about how he can talk to, people from the dead, including Qui-Gon Jinn, and I really wanted to see that. First off, I also just want to say, I want to see more Liam Neeson. Okay, I could listen to this man talk.
Yeah.
I could listen to this man talk I don't even care what it is. I'll just listen to whatever he has to say. So that was one thing I really wanted to see more of, and I'll be honest, I'm mad disappointed they did not focus on that. I'm like,
That's
real
season
disappointed.
2, Adam. That's season 2.
I don't say that
That's
to me,
season 2.
Jason.
That's what they're doing. They teased you season 2.
We'll talk about that later. And then,
my god!
there was obviously that there has to be some sort of connection of like is there something that they could do with Maul? That's the first thing you think of. But like Diego said, they already covered all that in Rebels, so it's like I don't really think that they're going to repeat the same thing just get live action. And then I always go back to this one piece of fan art I remember seeing years ago. It was like of Ben Kenobi in the desert surrounded by Tusken Raiders, and I was just like, I wouldn't mind seeing like just a short about like Ben dealing with the Tusken sort of thing. Low stakes but still really cool. Maybe protecting Luke or something like that.
I have a real quick thing about that.
Sure, go ahead.
I think so this is gonna sound weird, but I remember telling this to you that I thought the first 2 episodes of Boba Fett were
Right.
actually some of the best Star Wars content I've ever seen.
I remember saying
that's why it left me with and that's why it left me with such a fucking bad aftertaste because I was so disappointed.
right.
And now that you mentioned this thing with the Tusken Raiders, I would not be surprised if they straight up stole that idea from like the Kenobi movie that they had ready, or not
Right.
ready, but like the script that the guy wrote,
Sure.
because like that's a thing that they have to do. Is like if you're gonna have a movie about Tatooine and
Right.
like Kenobi, like the Raiders are gonna come up at some point.
Mhm.
And I don't know if they had the idea to like humanize them more like they did like following Mando, because they definitely did that in Boba Fett because of Mando.
Right.
But that's just like something that they definitely should have done, right? But because they're trying to stretch everything out and produce as much stuff as they can because Disney Plus,
Mhm.
like I think that plays into the larger problem of like on a micro level, this show is way too long, and I think in general there's way too much Star Wars like shows happening at the same time.
So there's 2 discussions there, and one of them I'm probably not going to get into until later because I definitely want to focus in on the show at this point. So Kenobi, we've kind of danced around it a little bit, but like let's just put all of our cards on the table. Did we like what is it about the show? Did we like Kenobi? Is it good? Is it bad? Let's talk about it. So right, Diego was kind of talking about it from before. We go into the show. This is set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. We see Kenobi. Your boy is depressed. Your boy is he's traumatized. Clearly, he's broken. He's working at the meatpacking factory. His boss is an asshole. Like this guy is like definitely seen better days, right? And he's gone through a lot. He's watching over Luke, except from afar, kind of weird, spying on him with his binoculars. Like, dude, like find something else to do. But at the same time, it's like, dude, what else is he going to do, right? Like, he's trying to lay low. Everything that he's known is gone, right? He had to kill his best friend, his apprentice. The entire Jedi Order has been destroyed, and for all he knows, like, the Empire still rose. And so, at the height of the Jedi's power, they lost, sort of thing. And so he's clearly dealing with a lot. And I guess, like, for me, I'll say this, like, going into that intro, I was like, okay, I'm with this sort of thing. Like the initial premise, I was like, I'm with it. First off, I think Ewan McGregor, by far one of the best parts of the prequel trilogy, one of the shining points of that trilogy, and I think giving him the chance to really flush out Obi-Wan is so good, and I think that his performance in this show is incredible, especially given what he's had to work with in terms of the writing and dialogue, which I think can be, I'll be honest, trash tier at some points in the show. But I do think that he gives a really good performance, and you could tell that this is a character that he wants to be, that he's happy to come back to the character, and I think that shines through in the performance. And the other thing I'll say too is that it was really cool to see Joel Edgerton back as Owen. He only had a small part in the prequel trilogy, but I think that he's a great actor, and I think that even though we only get a little bit of time with him in this show, the time that we do get, is definitely part of me that's like, I want to actually see more of him. Like, I actually
Yeah.
really enjoyed the time that he was on screen. I think he really brought a lot to the series. So I guess like for you guys, were you pulled in given your initial skepticism and or excitement for the show when it's first started out?
I have a thing. So I was actually very optimistic right at the beginning, because I was actually thinking about rewatching, maybe not all of this of the prequels, but like maybe like going through like an edit of like all three of them together, just like get like a light recap or something. And then they recapped them at the very beginning, with that little montage, and I was like, oh, that was actually like really well done, and it was a
Yeah.
nice it was like a nice touch.
Right.
Um, so and then like with the way the show started, I'm like, wow, I think they actually set it up really well for it to tell the kind of story that I'm expecting,
Mm-hmm.
where like, I'm sure they'll throw in the Inquisitors or whatever, but like, and with the way the show opens, like, wow, they're actually really gonna like have a character story about this old, like destroyed old man.
Right.
um and then they didn't, which was so awkward because the setup was there. It was great. Like even with the like, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when Yoda's like, I've found a way to talk to the dead, or whatever he
Right.
said. And so, and like you see him, like he can't use the Force. He's like so disconnected. Um and I would have thought that, like, over the course of the show, like maybe each episode he gets some Force powers back, and like like through guidance from Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon.
So just the entire time, like I know after, like it was pretty obvious from the end of the second episode that probably wasn't going to happen, but it was just like in the back of my mind the entire time. I'm like, okay, when they're gonna like sit down and like have him like deal with this.
Right.
Um, and as far as like, I lost my train of thought. I had another thing, but I'll let someone else.
All right. Before I move on to someone else, let me ask, just following up on kind of what I was saying. How did you feel about Ewan McGregor's performance, not only in the beginning, but I guess throughout the entire series?
Oh, he was amazing. I think like he had a bad, I think he was given some bad dialogue, like you said.
Oh yes.
But
Oh
I
God.
think like just like the incredible, like this show would have not. Obviously, you can't bring back Obi-Wan without bringing back Ewan McGregor,
Right.
and like it would have been awful without him. Like
Mhm.
he acted his fucking ass off for one. Like he
Right.
carried this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of makes me think like, man, they really blew all the budget on getting him and Hayden Christensen back.
Right.
Because it just like feels that way with how the show looks.
Yes. Yes.
So
We'll get to that for sure. I definitely think that there's a lot of. It's so weird because there are some shots in this show where I'm just like, wow, that's like an incredible shot. And other times I'm just like, man, is this like shot in someone's basement? What's going on here? Sort of thing. So I totally get what you're saying there. But Jason, how about you, man? Did the initial kind of premise grab you, given your reluctance going into the show? How'd you feel about Ewan McGregor's performance, all that stuff?
Ewan was great. Besides a few episodes in when he forgets that he can't say Leia's name. Don't know where that came from. Um, he has one job and he fucks that up. I like the idea of Obi-Wan having PTSD, but it doesn't explain like obviously he's gone through a lot. His best friend, he had to pretty much kill his best friend, or he thought he killed his best friend. The Republic fell, etc., etc. Everything's in turmoil. But with what Yoda, I just rewatched episode 3 2 days ago, and when Yoda says to him, "Oh, like we are going to teach you how to talk to Qui-Gon, like we're going to connect you to," I get that they wanted to hold off on that because it's a big moment, it's a very monumental moment, and also to tease season 2. But I don't know where the depression came in. Like, yes, you'd have PTSD, but also I don't know why he kind of lost his way with
Mm-hmm.
Luke in Force Awakens
Jedi.
and Last Jedi. Yeah, like they explained how he lost his way because like with Ben Solo and stuff. But here I don't really get it because he had a mission and he was still on mission. He has to take care of Luke. And like that's the thing. Bail Organa's got Leia. He's got Luke. I
Right.
understand that because the Inquisitors got Leia, which was we'll talk about that chase scene because good God, is out of like like that the idea that he was like, okay, I'll up and leave to take care of Leia when his post was Luke. So I still don't. From the very first episode, I didn't side with him because he already broke his rule. Yes, maybe like Leia had to take precedence because the Inquisitors are bad folk, and he's the only one that could step up to the challenge. But they never explained why he lost his way. PTSD is a thing, obviously, and in the Star Wars universe, it is existent. But they didn't explain what that disconnect was.
Sure.
And I think that's integral to figure out why he is in the place that he is in.
Okay. All right. I respect it. Abby, your thoughts and anything you wanted to add on or maybe counter a little bit?
No, I'm very much in alignment where I think Ewan McGregor is fantastic, BAFTA award-winning actor. He's classically trained. You can tell he's wonderfully researches characters. There were a couple of times where it was like, I think episode 5 or 6, where the dialogue felt awkward in his mouth. And as an actor, you know what I mean? I felt for him because I could tell. It was like, this is not how you would speak, and this is not how the character would speak, but this is what is on the page, and you are doing your job. So there were a couple of times I did notice that. I was like, ooh. But I thought, I have nothing but positive things to say. And you can tell, even if he did get paid a buckload of money, just the way he talks about it in the interviews, such an enthusiasm and respect for Alec Guinness and this character and what it means for people. Like at the end of the day, like there's sometimes you could tell, like we all know Harrison Ford hates Star Wars. He's like, keep that thing away from me. And like I would put Ewan McGregor at the other end of the spectrum for like Star Wars actors, where like they do love this universe and they do love these characters.
Yeah, I definitely think that comes through in the performance, like I said before, and I absolutely agree. There's some dialogue and just some writing, which is like I don't know what's going on right now, guys. Like that was awful, sort of thing. But at the same time, I think, like Diego said, it without him, you don't have the show. So I was really happy to see him return to the character, and in some ways, I almost hope that he gets another chance to return to the character because I think it was. Even though I'm really mixed on the show, to be honest with you, like it's got some really great parts and some awful awful parts.
Bro, please, just one more season, bro. Please, trust me this time, bro. Just one more season.
I am really happy overall that like we got to see him return to the character and give this to us, sort of thing, right? I'm very, very grateful for that, and I'm sure that he's grateful for that opportunity. You touched on this a little bit, Diego. He does go through an arc, and so do multiple other characters in this story, and I'm sure we'll get to those in a second. But I guess at the core, right, this is supposed to be Kenobi's story. Do you think it was a compelling story? Do you like what he had to go through and the stuff that he encountered? Was it worthy of I guess, was it a story that was worthy to be told?
I think you can make any story worth telling if you tell it properly. And I can see the pieces of the story that they're trying to tell. It's just nothing happens. Like every episode is like nothing happening, and then suddenly something happens and it's really important, and then the next episode, like it's the same cycle. Like it's just like walking and talking, and it's like every episode is like 40 minutes of Star Trek talking in a hallway, and then like 20 minutes of like a space battle or whatever. But just like there's no pacing. And I think this is an issue with most of the Star Wars show, like, which is like not not to be unexpected, but I think probably my biggest gripe is just there was no focus on what they were doing, because like I was saying, I expected it to go very differently from how it opened,
right?
And I thought that story was worth telling. And then the stuff with Reva happens, and I thought like Reva was actually like one of the highlights of the show. It's just it was just wasted,
right?
Because you have this like I'll come back to Obi-Wan's arc in a second, but just like Reva's whole arc is like this really interesting plot. Like I'm gonna get to Vader,
right,
and I'm gonna kill kids also for whatever reason,
right.
but it's just like that story is stuck in between like this other thing that is like immalleable, or not, like you can't fuck with it,
right?
Because like we know like Luke is not in any danger at the end of episode 6
right
of this show, unless they do something very, very weird that I won't talk about like the stuff from Rebels, but we all know that that's not going to happen. Like Luke is fine. Like he's gonna get knocked out. He's gonna forget that he saw a lightsaber. That's my justification for all that. But you know, and like and that just like makes it so hard to care about this story with Riva, because there is something really interesting there. But again, it's like Jason put it very well. It's like the Marvel way of these, how they go about these movies is like, oh, here's a little crumb of something cool, but you're not gonna see it until later. It's almost like they've already decided that they're gonna make a spin-off about Riva without actually knowing if anyone's gonna give a shit or if this show is even good. And even so, it still remains as like, man, like I really wish, like I really like the side story with Riva. It just sucks that it's sandwiched in between all this other stuff that's happening at the same time.
Right.
And for Obi-Wan's arc, it's like stuff just happens. There's no path that like makes sense to him. Like I feel like there was something missing in between episode 3 and 4 of the series, where like suddenly he's able to fight again just fine. There's no like I wish they did more of what they did like in the last episode with like, you know, he sees Leia and he suddenly just like, you know,
right,
takes
he
every
sees
rock
what
off
the
him.
New Hope is, and that therefore that motivates him because he knows he needs to protect the future. That sort of like growth.
I like that. They conveyed that. That'd be good.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could tell a very compelling, like, you know, let go of the past. Like you can let go of the past in some way by like looking to the future. Like you can like make up for your past mistakes by like enriching the future of, you know, Luke and Leia potentially. So yeah, I mean like and I guess like a really solid example of like why this feels strange is like it's like a whole lot of, this is gonna sound like counterintuitive, but like it's a whole lot of porn with no setup, and like
okay,
and like and you like, you know, the setup's not important to that, but with the idea of Star Wars porn, right? It's just like at the end of the show, he's just like, you know, he drops the line, he says it, he says the fucking line, he's like, hello there.
Okay.
And just like
before you go on, sorry, DK. Before you go on, just for the people who are watching who have not seen Red Letter Media, could you define what Star Wars porn is, just so they and a disclaimer: if you go look that up, I'm not responsible for what you find.
My dad listens to this podcast. I'm just letting y'all know.
Okay, so sorry for like not giving context to that, but it's just like it's like a lot of like flashy stuff, but not really a lot of substance. Like it's stuff that's cool for the sake of being cool, which I don't think intrinsically there's anything wrong with. And I think it is really cool if you bring Ewan McGregor back and he's just like, hello there, like, because that's a big meme, right? Like I think it's fine to do that. I don't think that detracts from the show. It's just like they kind of, I don't know. It's just like it wasn't. That is not a thing that should feel like it needs to be earned. But the fact that the show was like at every step justifying its own existence felt like that there was no room to tell a story, and no room to set up like something flashy like that, or something like, you know, fan servicey. So
okay, Abby, are you basically around the same thing as Diego, or do you feel a little bit differently?
I had fun with it. I honestly, like, there were a couple things I agree that, like we've already mentioned with some of the dialogue. Plots that are hot, yes, I would say dialogue the hardest, and production value, even sometimes, like you said. But overall, did I have a good time? Heck yeah. Was I excited to watch it? Yeah, honestly, I was really excited to watch it each week. I was like really curious what was going to happen. And me and my sorority sisters have a thing with media where we call it the phone meter. I know you have your matinee meter, Adam, but the phone meter, right? Which is, how often do I want to look at my phone? So is it a movie or a TV show that's a 0 level, phone level, or like 5 level? Like I'm just gonna be on Instagram the whole time. And this was honestly, like, I would say like a 1-0. Like I was enthralled, even if it was bad and some things weren't making sense. I did not know what was gonna happen, so I kept watching. And so that even is a measurement of how I'm watching media nowadays, honestly, with attention span.
Which is a really, really good measure, honestly. Because I said this to Diego when I was watching Boba Fett. It was just like, I don't even think Boba Fett was necessarily like bad. Like, I've seen worse movies in TV, but it was boring. In a lot of ways, that's even worse. Yeah.
No, exactly, because it was like Boba Fett. I was a phone level 5, and
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker is my favorite fictional character of all time, and even him, beautifully digitized, created youngfully on screen with a baby Yoda, and I was like, like if I
Right.
that's bad if I am bored and I feel
Right.
the stakes are so low that I would rather be on Twitter. That's not good.
I totally understand. Now before I get to Jason, but overall, did you feel good about I guess Obi-Wan's story in particular and kind of what he has to go through in the series?
Yeah. I think Obi-Wan's role and purpose, right, is his protector, but he
Right.
is fundamentally a side character
Right.
in this scheme of other people's lives, the Skywalker family's saga.
Right.
And so I think it does make sense to give him his own time, right, to develop and see where that goes. But it has to, and it's very interesting though, because his life is his life around the Skywalkers, and that's why this was about Leia, is what I thought. It's like this is a man who is the side character in his own life, which is a very funky thing. But I
Right.
think there are people like that, and if you even look at some of the older Star Wars archetypes of like a feudal knight and
Mhm.
how he would be in service to a family, that kind of makes sense, kind of for Obi-Wan's function within the Skywalker like dynasty, you know.
Yeah. I can definitely see what you're saying. How about you, Jason? Where do you kind of fall in line?
Quick thing to what Diego's saying. Instead of using the P word, I think a
You can
good
you can just say it. It's okay. But sorry, go ahead.
Star Wars porn, but a good like another term for it is if anyone watches wrestling, there's a thing called cheap pops where you easily get like a rise out of the crowd. And I feel like
Mm,
doing Star Wars isms that everybody knows, like the hello there and the hand cut off, and then the music, like those are cheap pops. Like
okay.
you'll get an instant reaction, like oh, like everyone makes that joke about the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, and
I
I
just
have
thought of that. Yeah.
that's
Right.
exactly what it is. It's like, oh, I know that. Like, I know that. So therefore, that's a cheap pop because like you get an instant like dopamine hit because
Hmm.
your familiarity with a property.
Sure.
And Star Wars Disney has been littered with that. But to answer the question, I didn't. So I'm fine with the idea of Obi-Wan having to like kind of regain confidence with the Force and like get in
Right.
tune with it and protect the kids. But the way they went about it, I wasn't happy with. Same with Riva. I like the idea of an Inquisitor who's like
Yeah.
secretly trying to like get with Darth, like get at Darth Vader, like kill him.
Yeah.
But the ways they went around that and then like made her a redeemed character, I'm sorry, it doesn't fly with me. Like if you're
Mm,
a child that survived Order 66 and your whole mission is to say to redeem or avenge the fallen Jedi, the fallen Padawans
right.
of Order 66 by killing more kids, that doesn't add up. I don't know where her logic. Yes, maybe she led astray, like led
Sure.
astray with her way of thinking, but the fact that it was redeemed at the end, which I guess we'll talk about later, didn't fly with me. But the thing with Obi-Wan and his being led astray and then having to come back to the Force by it being another escort mission a la Mando. I feel like they just are resorting to escort missions in these shows,
Right.
and making it a thing about Leia. Didn't fly with me. The kid who played Leia was really cute, and like she had the qualities of a young Princess Leia, but
Right.
overall, like that's not what I wanted. I'd rather just like a haggard old man on the desert, like protecting Luke from afar, and then having to
Hmm.
like deal with being alone, and then maybe having a little love affair with what was their character's name?
Tala.
Uh,
Tala.
Tala. That
Mm,
would have been great. And then like him like dancing between like should I have a love affair? Like I'm with the Jedi, but the Jedi are dead, so therefore can I have like an actual relationship? And then maybe her dying will then let him to be like, no, I gotta keep my way and keep my mission. But the way they went about it with it being an escort mission to save Leia again is just didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. Wasn't a fan.
you bring up an interesting point. And I definitely want to discuss this with all of you. In that, in some ways, Kenobi feels like they picked and choose like so many different parts of the new canon. So all right, let's throw that in there. Let's throw that in there. Let's throw it in there. Like, oh, people really like the character that has to escort a child, and because of that child, they go through an arc. I will take that from the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch. Oh, the Inquisitors. People really like the Inquisitors from Jedi Fallen Order and the comics. Okay, let's take that and put it in there, sort of thing. Um, and and
And
and
Rebels.
and Rebels too. Sorry, yeah, I haven't seen Rebels. Diego keeps on telling me to watch it. I
I need to
didn't think
watch
the
it
first
too.
couple episodes were that good. Anyway, so there's definitely like some I guess like patchwork, and I think again that goes back to like the kind of padded feeling you have sometimes when you watch the show. Um, but at the same time, I think that I, I I I don't think this is a controversial thing to say, and certainly I'd be curious if any of you disagree. I think the best part about the show by far is the dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and particularly Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Right, every single time they are on the screen together, it's like
Yeah.
you have me. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
I cried on the flashback scene. Like I was straight up like I had tears in my eyes. I'm like,
I,
wow, they actually
they
finally.
yeah. And it's so powerful, right? You see, and first off, I know we've been talking about Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, incredible performance. Okay, like I know everyone likes to meme about his dialogue and all that other stuff from the prequels, like oh I'm taking him now, like there's there's just
He's
so
a fucking
much.
great actor.
He's
I like
really
I
good.
genuinely yeah.
And his take on Vader, and the way he moves, and even like I think so much to the last duel. I forget on the planet where it's the rock planet, right? And how much acting he did just with one side of his face and his eyes. I was just like, this is hats off to Hayden Christensen, and similar to Ewan McGregor. I think that he's someone who clearly has a love for the character and is happy to be back and to explore more. And I think that comes through in his performance, and you could see that just the way they play off of each other. That like this is the core of the show, or of the story, right? And it's clearly the most compelling part. But how do you all feel, I guess, about that dynamic?
I wish there was more of it. This is just like the only way I can think about it, because there was that scene in episode 2 where you see Hayden like as Anakin just off in the distance, right? And I found the word that I was thinking about before about how I expected the show to go in terms of like Obi-Wan's arc. I thought it was gonna be a lot more cerebral. Like I thought that scene of him seeing Anakin I thought more of that was gonna happen, where he's like not necessarily gonna be seeing Anakin everywhere, but it's gonna just be a lot of like reflecting and like moments of that where it's just it allows them to be on screen together. um and like obviously the easiest way of doing it is just doing flashbacks, but really like exactly how I feel about them together is just like, man, I like the show should have just been more of that, like if not most of that. Like you could definitely still have room for the side stories and stuff, but like just it blows my mind how much of like Hayden was wasted, because he could have had a presence in every episode. It would have been very very easy to work him in to like you know they can make up whatever the fuck they want with the Force, because it does whatever they want if they want it to, right? You just easily have them communicate through the Force, and just like have like a like an unlit like all black room, and they're just like sitting across from each other, just like something like that, right? So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the show has been for me is just like my own expectations, which is like maybe unfair to the show, but also it's just
Sure.
like this you promised me a show with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and kind of didn't get any of it for like 5 episodes. So
Go ahead, Jason. I could see that you definitely have a lot to say about this subject.
Oh yes. I love Hayden as Anakin. I don't know who like put the purview for me, but like someone explained it as the way he speaks in the prequels is how Darth Vader speaks, like those very curt sentences, and it's like kind of like few syllables per sentence. If you
Sure.
listen to it, think of Darth Vader's voice as he's talking. It's the exact same, and it changed the whole game for me. But I really did wish there was more flashback stuff. The one flashback, they only had one scene that they kept flashbacking to, which was them on was it Coruscant?
It looked like Coruscant.
it was Coruscant, yeah.
Where there was no ships in the back. It was completely empty.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that like supposed to be a busy city? And there was like no shit. Whatever. That's
I think the temple is like way above everything else.
That's fair. I'll take that.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, that one scene, they could have done so much more. And I agree. Like the reveal of him knowing who Darth Vader was, like that he was like, oh, that's Anakin.
Yeah, the Anakin is still alive.
Yeah,
incredible. So good. I don't know. I loved it. I
don't know
loved
if
it.
Riva should have been the one to do. I feel like he maybe should have figured it out. And also, I could have done without the first fight. It could have just led up to that fight. Maybe more flashbacks and maybe like a Force Connect, like Diego was saying.
Sure,
Because now,
sure.
since the new sequels, Force Connect has been completely turned into FaceTime, where you can have full-on conversations and transfer water to each other. Is that still canon now? That they could remember in
Who the
the
fuck
Last
knows?
Jedi or Rise of
Yeah,
Skywalker? They were
it was
shooting water
just
at
in
each
Rise
other?
of Skywalker.
Yeah. If they can do that, I think it'd be best buds again. Easy peasy. They can have a pool party. But yeah, I wish there was more flashbacks and more connection between the two. And I'd love to see more inner dialogue of Vader. Like, because
Mhm.
he's fully turned at the end, right? And they were saying that, no, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. And then Obi-Wan finally calls him Darth, which he calls him in the prequels. And that was like
Right.
a moment like, oh, now he's fine with him still being alive because he didn't kill Anakin. His conscience is cleared.
Right.
But I want to see more turmoil with Darth, like, because I don't really believe he went fully dark at the end of Revenge of the Sith, because like he was upset about Padme. He's still
Sure.
an emotional wreck. Eventually, he'll come to terms with being like, oh, I'm just like this evil man now.
Mhm.
But him having his master come back or realizing he's still alive, and I wish there was just more like push and pull between
Yes.
them, and then at the
Mhm.
end, like it's finite, like I'm the master now. Before I was the learner, you're the master, or whatever he says in New Hope.
Yeah.
I didn't get that turmoil with Vader, and I wanted that.
Mm.
Yeah.
How about you, Abby? I know you're a fan of the prequels. Were you left satisfied, or did you want more too?
I agree. If I was Hayden Christensen's agent, I'd be like, okay, what's the timing per episode? I think it's mostly, but it's like how much out of mask versus in mask time do I have if I was from that perspective? Because I guess there is a part of the actor, right? And he talked about being in the suit for him is fully as immersive because he is physically right acting with his arms, his legs, your body. You're just not using your face.
Right.
So I did think about that. I wish there's a smidge more, but I was pleased with the moments we did get. I thought they were very engaging and very visceral, very powerful. And I was always a big fan of Hayden. A lot of girls my age, he was really handsome. He was a big deal with the prequels. I don't know. Like, it's the female gaze. He's very pretty. So just like, I don't know. I was a big fan of him. It was good to see him back. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with, I'm curious to see, and I kind of do disagree a bit with there being a good side. I feel like eventually, yes, we get to the good side, but I mean, it is so far deep there that no one expects it until Return of the Jedi. Like we have to keep remembering that. You know what I mean? That it is it is amazement that Luke did what he did. And Luke barely did it. By the skin of his teeth, barely did it. And so I honestly, I don't really want to see the wavering between, because this is a man who killed children. This is a man who slaughtered. Like I don't think he's in a place to open for reconciliation till the end of his life. Honestly,
like Riva.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But I like, so I'm not really interested in that kind of Darth. I'm very interested in like Rogue One Darth, like ending of Rogue One Darth. And what we saw here, the scary horror, if we're going to talk about it, I think the best Darth Vader I've ever seen, actually, of any media, was him in the village.
Oh my God. That was an incredible scene.
Goosebumps. And so that's who I want to see. I don't want to see, like, honestly, like, confliction. And when he's being scary like that, I was like, hell yeah. Because he will get redeemed later. But right now, he's not.
I'm so glad that you brought it up, because I'll be honest, like there are times when I look at the Darth Vader design, I'm like, all right, guys, he looks kind of goofy. He looks kind of slow. I don't understand how this dude is a badass. And then every time I see him, I'm like, all right, never mind.
I'm out.
That was him. That wasn't me, Darth. I'm your biggest fan. Like, it wasn't me. And that was a perfect encapsulation, because like in some ways they almost make him like a slasher villain. Like just like he enters the village, just like taking random people. Like another thing that I loved too was the fight between him and Riva. I don't even call it a fight, right? It was more like a beatdown.
It was a beatdown.
You're toying with it.
No, my favorite thing is like Riva's like about to strike, right? And then he holds it back, and then Riva has that like, oh fuck, like look,
she does.
She was like, shit, I might have miscalculated, sort of thing.
I'm really I'm really glad that they played into like the whole like horror aspect of what Vader is, right?
Right.
Because it's one of the only times in like Disney media or Star Wars related media that like they still get it right exactly of
Mhm.
like what Darth Vader is and like how fucking scary he is.
Mhm.
And like the thing that I know is never going to happen because it would be actually like a good idea. But I remember reading like back when Rogue One came out of people being like, "What? They should just make like a horror film like with Darth Vader in it, something like that." And I think like there was glimpses of that in the Village,
Mhm.
and yeah, like Abby saying like that. I don't think this show would be. Uh, like maybe not exactly in the way that I wanted it to, but it makes a lot of sense. Like exactly Abby's point, where like, yeah, this guy is fucked up. Like, you don't really need to see him wavering back and forth when like you literally just watch him snap a kid's neck.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what I will say is for those of you, and this isn't just people like in this review, those of you who are looking for more of like kind of Vader and kind of character work there, again, couldn't recommend the comic books enough by Marvel, whether it be Karen Gillan's run or I think it's Al Ewing's run. Basically, all the Marvel runs are really good, and you should read them because they definitely do a really good job of fleshing out Vader as a character, and I would say they're the best Disney again story material that's come out since they got the property. But I'm so glad that we're talking about Vader because I think he's such a highlight of the show, and I'm so glad that all of you kind of agree with me on that. I guess like for when it comes to Vader, right? Like he is kind of like that magnet, right? Whenever he's on the screen, just like all right, we're paying attention, but we're also kind of dividing our time between different villains. So we've already mentioned Reva, but we also have the other Inquisitors and things like that, even some bounty hunters that get involved. So how'd y'all feel about the other villains that were kind of put in this show? I know the Grand Inquisitor is also in Rebels. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
yeah, the Grand Inquisitor, the second sister, and the fifth brother, like
uh,
they're all in Rebels.
okay. I have not seen Rebels, so I was not aware of kind of like what they were before, but I did like the Inquisitors and Jedi Fallen Order. So I guess like in terms of the other antagonists in the show, how'd y'all feel? Besides also wait, hold on, I'm sorry, I just had to say this. This show has proven to me that the stormtroopers are by far the worst fucking troops I've ever seen. These people could have hit the broadside of a fucking barn. Okay,
Barn.
like oh my god, like when they're all charging into like that narrow hallway, there's like 30 there's like at least 100 stormtroopers and they can't hit any of the rebels that are in this small room. It's like, guys, what's happening? What's her name? Tala, the double agent, right? She's being held captive by 2 stormtroopers. Okay, Tala literally slaps one, doesn't even shoot him, slaps him, and he just like goes down. It's like, oh man, I'm dead. It's like, what? Where'd the Empire find these guys? Like, what is happening?
They can't penetrate plot armor, Adam. Plot armor is impenetrable.
Yeah, like I think what that's one of like the biggest Star Wars isms, right? Is the stormtroopers
It's like,
don't hit anything.
oh my
But
god.
I think that was more like just a very horribly directed action sequence. So
Interesting. The Inquisitors. Well, I didn't watch Rebels, but I was really fascinated. I was honestly by this concept of like what happened to the Jedi who were not killed, but then who did not like where did they go? And it was like, what if they had to turn, but they returned to hunt others? I was like, that is messed up
Mm-hmm.
on like multitude of levels. So I think that is pretty fascinating. Would you know that if we did not know that, except Raina? No. Like I had to explain that to my parents when we were watching, and they're like, "Oh, well, why didn't they say it?" I was like, "Okay, okay." So that I thought was interesting because I thought it would have been a very easy way to like slide it in that like, oh, these are former Jedi,
Right.
and they did not do that at all. And I know we have a lot of deep cuts here, folks, people who are deep cuts here, but if we're talking about mass appeal, I thought that's something very simple that you could show.
Right.
But I think it's a very creepy concept. And I think it's a very moral question. I think Star Wars loves talking about ethics, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the core of it is ethical questions and philosophy. And so it is if I'm a Jedi and I will be killed or my other life is to live, but I have to kill those who I was with, what would you do? And some of us would not pick to die. And that's
Mm-hmm.
those people. And I think that is interesting. And I don't think we really got a lot of that, though.
For sure. And Diego and Jason, did you watch Rebels as well? Is that correct? Or
No, I know quite a bit of Rebels through like retrospectives and whatnot, but I've never watched the
okay.
show. I know this will sound bad. I will watch it eventually. It looked a little kiddie for me, a little too
It
kiddie.
is. I can assure you, it is Kitty. As someone who watched the first couple episodes, that's why I stopped.
That's kind of what deterred me. I do like animation wise. I do like Gendy Tartakovsky's the Samurai Jack Star Wars.
Yes,
best animated Star Wars ever.
Yeah, bar none. Don't even at me. The people who are watching this or listening to this, best animated Star Wars show. I'm dying on that hill. Gendy Tartakovsky is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. I'm dying on that hill. It's sorry. I'm
Preach. But no, I didn't know the Inquisitor. I knew the Inquisitors to a degree. I like the concept, like Abby was saying, of fallen Jedi that have to like be like, I'm gonna get killed anyway, so I better just like revert to the dark side. That's fun. But the implications of this show with the Inquisitors really kind of PO'd me because you set up Riva. You set up Riva as literally too hardcore for the Inquisitors. There's several times they're like, "Whoa, she's going way beyond what we want to do."
Okay,
like,
girl.
I don't know about this one. So they have a conscience. Like they have a conscience of like, I don't even want to touch that. And then we're redeeming the one is that it was more hardcore than the Grand Inquisitor. And then they give her the Grand Inquisitor thing and they give her the patch for like a second and then take it away. And then Diego, explain to me, does the Grand Inquisitor have two stomachs? Is that why he survived? I heard something about two stomachs.
I was actually going to bring that up. I was very, very confused to the point that like I thought that there were two different Grand Inquisitors, like the one that appears in Rebels and the one in Obi-Wan, because
same one.
I was like, yeah, wait, what? Did she just kill him? What the fuck is going on? But I don't know what's going on with lightsabers in this show specifically.
Someone tell Qui-Gon that he could easily get it. He could easily even live. He could easily live.
I can understand it from the perspective of like, yeah, Darth Maul got cut in half and lived because like that's like a dark side thing to keep yourself alive through just like sheer pettiness, right? And it's like a big thing in like one of the main antagonists in KOTOR 2 is just like his body is literally cut technically into 1,000 pieces, but it's the Force and his anger holding him together.
right.
So I could like you could justify like what happens in the show with the lightsabers in that way, but it's just like they make zero effort. And this is like if we do an episode by episode thing, like later on when the Grand Inquisitor comes back, and it's just like, hello.
Just to say, like, no, he's still alive. Don't worry, continuity. He's still good. He's still there,
dude. I didn't react to it the first time, but then watching the clip back, I just fucking burst out laughing because I'm like, what? Sure. I don't know. Minorly unrelated, but I thought his actor was great. I wish there was more of him.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like another instance of the show that just like, like with to go back to the original question about like the antagonists and stuff, like there was plenty of ideas that were good, and I thought like the Grand Inquisitor, because the Grand Inquisitor actually has like a big role in season 1 and 2 of Rebels, and I think he's just straight up my favorite character in those 2 seasons because of like the arc that he goes through. And so like watching this back was kind of interesting because it's like, okay, this is like, what happens to him later on, so like what's going on here, and he doesn't really do anything except get stabbed in the chest and then come back and be like, hello. So I don't know, and it's also awkward because like the Inquisitors were very not well received at all at the beginning, like when they're first introduced in Rebel season 1, and I'm like glad but also disappointed that they didn't do the helicopter thing with the lightsabers.
They did.
Which, I don't know.
They did it once when Reaver tried to do it against Vader.
But like,
Reva did
actually
it, yeah.
fly.
Oh, you mean like literally fly? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like literally flying with the fucking lightsabers, spinning like a helicopter. I'm like so glad that they didn't do that, but I'm also just like, man, it would have been fucking hilarious if they doubled down on that. Because they stopped doing it in Rebels because people were so pissed. Like, how stupid it looked. But yeah.
I have to say something really quick with Jason that you said about how Reyna was the most extreme of them. A really easy fix would have been if she was the least extreme of them. So we already had the seed that she was like not ready to. I think that would have been way smarter. I don't know why they went. I don't know, because then we could already see that maybe this is going to be a future ally, but like she's still bad, but like
Right.
maybe there's a future ally there instead of being so far on the other edge.
Yeah,
That's an interesting point.
I mean, like, I'll just say this. One, I as much as like what kind of what Jason said was true about like her being so car. I actually thought it was hardcore. I thought it was so funny when she like cut off that person's hand. Like, you don't have any authority here. Just like cuts it off, and then like the other person's like, Reba, what the hell? We said we were gonna do that.
They called her out on being like too
Yeah.
awkward, like 3 times.
No, my favorite is I forget which brother it was, but it's a guy who's played by the same actor as Han in the Fast and Furious movies. Literally, like, brings her to the alley. It's like, what are you doing? Like, calm down. Like, I thought it was such a hilarious scene in general. But like, I agree with Abby though, and I think that this is something that it seems like all of us are kind of circling around, is that the idea of Reva is actually a very, very compelling character. And I think that the actress Moses Ingram does a really good performance in some of the episodes. Some of the episodes she's just given some really bad writing and dialogue. I don't think anyone could have salvaged that sort of thing. I actually really like the idea of it, but the execution is just like kind of what you were saying. Like, these little things here and there could have been done better to actually make it a much more compelling character. But there's just so many things in the writing are just like, I don't know what's happening right now. This is like really weird. Like, I'm supposed to really care about this character, but at the same time, I only find out about this character like in like episode 5, was it? And like when we find out, they're talking through a door and just like, hey, so you're actually a youngling, right? And it's like, what is happening right now? Like, we're getting a backstory through a conversation through a blast door. And then like at the same time, the craziest part is that like she's like, yes, you're right, I am a youngling, like through the door, and like the stormtroopers are like right behind her, just like, are we really just having like a backstory conversation within earshot of everyone? Like, what? Like, who wrote this? What is this? It was like bizarre. And then my favorite part is too is like at the end of the conversation, right? She like stabs the blaster with the lightsaber, and like that opens. It's like, huh? You could have done that the entire time. That's really weird. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know. There's a lot of things in the show. Yeah, there's a lot of things in the show, and I do want to talk about Reva in a second, but I think the biggest problem with the show is that there are so many really, really cool parts like that we've already talked about, but there's so many just mind-boggling decisions where it takes me out of it. I'm just like, I don't even know what the fuck is going on, guys. I don't even know how you thought that was a good idea. Like, the one that really sticks out to me is episode 4, which is by far the worst episode, by the way. Episode 4 is awful when they're in the base and they're infiltrating the base. When they're all escaping and like, oh, Obi-Wan, here's a disguise, and he just has like a trench coat and is hiding the girl. It's like, oh yeah, you know, just on a casual stroll here. It's like, no one's gonna notice this guy? Like, this is the worst disguise I've ever seen. Like what? How is this even? Who thought that was a good idea? That was just like, yep, that's competent writing. That makes sense. It's like, what is going on?
I think the writers saw Jason Segel's Muppets. Has anyone seen Jason Segel's Muppets, the first
yes.
one?
Yeah.
The first
they
one.
do Muppet Man. They do Muppet Man. They saw that. They're like, oh, brilliant. That'll get us out of that. We can just write that in. It was absurd. It's very absurd. It honestly, because I rewatched 2 and 3. 1 I remember pretty well, but 2 and 3 I rewatched 2 and 3, and that might be up there as one of the most absurd moments in Star Wars. It's just so dumb. It's comically dumb.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking with that.
I have no idea.
Cute.
Like that,
it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
I guess.
That was one of the moments in the series I was just like, all right, guys, you're really losing me right now. Like that was awful. I don't know.
Wait, which part specifically?
No, it was when they were escaping the base, and like, and he was in a disguise, and he had like Leia like under
2 kids in a trench coat.
Yeah, in the trench coat. It was like.
It was because Jason mentioned episode 2 and 3 specifically for a second, and I thought we were going to talk about.
Prequels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I should probably say the whole names now because episode is who? What's an episode these days? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we should focus on Reva though, because I do think she's clearly a core part of the show, and in some ways, I would say like the secondary protagonist, even though she is an antagonist sort of thing. Like, it's clearly the story's a lot about her, and she mirrors Obi-Wan in that they both have to get over their past in order to move forward, right? They both come. That's their arc, and that's how they kind of mirror each other. So I for you, Abby, how did you? I know you mentioned that you were a fan of Reva, but you also mentioned some writing tweaks. Overall, how did you feel about Reva, her character, and I guess her place in the show overall?
I agree with you. There were some writing tweaks. Like I didn't even think about it until Jason said that, but I think that would have been such an easy fix of showing that doubt early on, because she was very, and I mean, she's a villain. She's supposed to be unlikable. She was pretty unlikable at the beginning.
Yes.
But I also, even with a villain, I'm like, what is your objective? And it was just like lashing out. And I'm like, what are you lashing out at?
Yeah.
And so Moses, like I talk about the actress, like, and I know we talked about it later, the way people went after her, not okay.
Yes.
No,
We'll definitely talk about that. We'll definitely talk about that. Go ahead.
And she's very talented. She had an MFA,
Yes.
like went to Yale for acting, which is like the third best acting school in the world. So like very talented, but like even like we said, even with some of these lines in some of the later episodes, not even a Yale trained actor can make that sound appropriate. But I think the idea, again, talking about like a lot of this, I feel like I've mentioned, it's like this idea of this is so smart, but then the execution, like the idea of a youngling who survived, that is fascinating, and the trauma that comes with that, and the timing was a lot, but the timing of that happening in our world today, and of how you move forward when horrible things happen in the past.
Right.
Who are you mad at? And I think for Reyna, it's a kind of like, who is she mad at? Is she mad at the Jedi for letting her down? Is she mad at Vader for what he did? Is she mad at herself for surviving? And I think is kind of fascinating. And I am excited to see what they do with her. Am I like amazingly stoked? No, but like I am excited, and I do think she was necessary. I don't want to say like she's a necessary plot device, but she is necessary for a lot of elements from the prequels that needed to somehow be worked in to what this piece needed to be.
How did you feel? So along those lines, right? We already talked about how she was a little hardcore. How did you feel about the interrogation scene with Leia?
It made me uncomfy, but it also it was very interesting because you could also tell with Leia that she doesn't take any shit,
right?
Which I thought was really well done. But I mean, it is one of those things where it's like willing disbelief, because like you have an adult versus a child, who's going to win, right? And so that is, I think, a very, I don't know. I think that especially when you're dealing with children, and I think about this with media a lot of times too, there are lines you don't cross.
Yeah.
And then how do you go about that? And I don't know if Star Wars answered that. Do you know what I mean? I know it's like a non-answer, but I do think when you have children depicted on screen, well, I mean, as you know, as an actor, you have lots of different rules when children on screen. They have different, like SAG-AFTRA rules. They have to be there only for certain amounts of time. They have to have breaks. So it's like there's a special rule on screen, unwritten rule, when we see a child and what we are allowed to see happen to them, if that makes sense. And even in the original, in A New Hope, Leia gets tortured, right? Like by the probe. We don't see that. The door gets closed.
Right.
In that scene. So we don't like to see that. So I think that's kind of interesting, the visible versus the invisible, kind of with Reyna, which they kind of went into, but not really.
Yeah, it was definitely like I agree with you that I was like really trying to figure out how I felt about it as well. It was just like I like it, but at the same time I don't. At the same time, it's really weird that we're integrating a 10-year-old that looks like a 7-year-old. Like it was definitely very, very strange in a lot of ways. But
she was 9 when it was filmed.
I want to be very, very clear. The actress who's playing Leia, Vivian Lyra Blair, I actually think that she's very good in the role. I just think that
fantastic. Yeah.
I just think that there's a couple of things that are written poorly, and like again, she doesn't look like she's 10. She looks like she's 7, sort of thing. It was really weird. And then the other thing too is what's it called? Like we talked about it before, the chase scenes of her in the show are straight out of Looney Tunes. They're like it is comically bad. Like the one of the forest is actually the worst. Like when the goon runs into the branch, it's like what? Like there's no way this got past story. I refuse to believe that someone was like, "Yep, that's the cut. Great job." Like I just cannot fathom like who was like, "Yep, this is the tone that we're going for."
But if you want to talk about children with tone, Adam, I think going back, I don't know to be a comparable, another fantasy series, but Harry Potter, the first 3, I would say, do a really good job with young actors.
Yes.
And tone, and so it can be done.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely can be done, and I'm glad you brought up the first 3. Harry Potter: Prisoner of Azkaban is the best Harry Potter movie. Don't at me.
Amen.
It is a fact. It is a fact.
It's Goblet of Fire.
Which one is that?
The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Serious.
Harry Potter 3.
3. Oh, okay. I've only seen 2 and 5.
Okay. Well,
I'd
I'd recommend that you watch the rest. But anyway, Jason, I definitely want to hear what you have to say about Reva because you already mentioned some of your own thoughts in terms of her writing, but you've also said that there's a lot of things that you do like about her. So I guess how did you feel about her overall place in the story, and how I guess she, in some ways, is very similar to Obi-Wan and is going through that same arc.
Well, I want to preface anything I say is a writing issue,
Right.
not an acting issue. Because who am I to say what's good acting or bad acting? I thought she did fine for what she was given. Sadly,
Mhm.
she was given crap.
Mm.
I like with what Abby's saying. If Abby's canon is true, I would have definitely liked her being more conflicted, more like not literally the worst of the Inquisitors and the most hardcore of the Inquisitors. Like that's you can't really come back from that. Like Darth Vader came back from that, and I still think that's like not plausible enough that he was right before. Like he was like because Lucas said Vader was the actual hope. He was
The chosen one.
the chosen one. It took him forever to do it, but he did it. He killed the Emperor and then he killed himself. That's all done. And then the sequels had to redo it again. I don't know, but so even then I was still lenient. I get still like hesitant on the thought of Vader being the chosen one. It doesn't make much sense that he's like now good and now he could be a force ghost. So with Reva's case, her being so hardcore as it is, and her plan doesn't make a lick of sense. Like you had several. Someone brought this up. It was not my idea. I wish I thought of this idea. They show the back to tank like 1,000 times on this show. Obi-Wan uses it. Boba uses it in his show. Darth Vader uses it. She could have easily spent time in the back to tank with Darth Vader, like in that room, killed him then, pulled a tube. Like he's the most vulnerable. You're gonna wait until this moment where you didn't even know Obi-Wan was in play enough to like side with you and help you out on this. It was very convenient that like Obi-Wan was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna reach out to you and we're gonna kind of tag team on this one." That's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So with the point, sorry, my sound levels are weird. With that in mind, I just think if they restrained her more and made her more human, she was human, but like also she didn't have to go to 11 on it.
Right.
I guess to get Vader's trust. That's an interesting thought, but she took this long to do that. There were several times where she could have had a better chance at attacking Vader than how they portrayed it on screen. And for that, I thought she was pretty flawed as a character,
Yeah,
not in like a
and
good flawed way.
no, I get what you're saying, but I definitely agree in the sense like we're supposed to care about the character, but we find out so late that
Yeah,
like, oh, this is why we care, sort of thing. And again, we've already talked about the delivery of said revelation is bizarre, sort of thing. And I agree with you that like the duel between them is actually very cool because again, we get to see Vader kind of just beat down and kind of just be like, yo, he's just toying with his prey, sort of thing. But the way we get there, I agree with you. It's just like Obi-Wan's just like, I'm gonna bring Vader here and you're gonna kill him. She's like, what? Like, what was her plan then before?
right.
Also, I like this. I thought it was so strange. Like, you're the Grand Inquisitor now. Here's your award on like your pin. It was just like, that's it. It's just like a little pin that gets passed on to people. Like what?
What a ceremony.
Yeah.
Oh, quick thing. I also want to add this. I
Sure.
don't want to interrupt. Abby, you were saying about you found it interesting that she was a survivor of Order 66. I don't know much about Rebels, but I do know that Kanan guy, Diego can probably back me up on this. Kanan is also Survivor 66, and he's also
Right.
voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. So that's
Oh.
pretty cool.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
that's been done kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's not like that like unique of a character idea.
Right.
It's a great idea, and I'm sure
Right.
that can happen. Several characters could be survivors of Order 66. That's a great
Mhm.
arc to go on. But it's kind of been done too. So it's not even like she was the first for that, and like she has that going for her. It's already been done in Disney canon.
Yeah, not to mention also that's what Cal Kestis is in Jedi Fallen Order. He's also someone that survived
There you go.
Order 66. Yeah, so it's certainly been done before. Go ahead, Diego.
I was gonna say it seems more a product of like the space of time you're trying to occupy of when the show takes place, right? Because
Right.
it's like, yeah, if there's a Jedi who is old enough, they were around during Order 66, like it wouldn't be anyone else. And like anyone who's force sensitive is just being taken by the Inquisitors.
Mhm.
So
Or
it's
killed.
not like a for or against the show or like the character, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Reva?
Nothing. I mean, like, I don't know what I could add besides just like I really wish that she was given better dialogue,
Mhm.
because like the stuff with her at the beginning, like the way they introduced her, like just took me completely out of the show.
Mhm.
Because I'm not seeing like a character. I'm watching someone try to I was not immersed at all.
Mhm.
Like it was like this doesn't. I feel like I'm watching like an American person transplanted into Tatooine at this very instant, and then trying to have them like fit in, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense.
Right.
And like it just was not like, she just did not seem like a character until like episode 3 or 4,
Mhm.
and it was just so awkward, and it sucks because I was like very excited to see what they would do with her, and like as predictable as it was, right? Because it's like, yeah, the very opening shot of the show is like it goes from the montage to then like the scene with the Padawans,
Right.
and it's like, okay, they're showing this for a reason, and then they introduce this like really out of place Inquisitor, and it's like, oh, okay, she probably was one of those Padawans,
Right.
and they talk about this in the Red Letter Media review, but it was just like literally as I'm watching the show, I'm just like, yeah, like I from the first episode I called like 4 different things. It was like the Padawan thing, Vader's helmet is gonna break at the end, and that's how they're gonna show Hayden, and just like again the randomness of like justifying this the show's own existence and like setting up like another show. It's just so much of it. It was just a question of execution rather than like plot. Because Star Wars can have very silly fucking plots. But
That much is known.
uh,
Check out the holiday special.
I had a thing earlier
Go
that I
ahead.
wanted to bring up.
Sure.
Um, do any of you remember any of the music from this show?
Glad you brought that up. No.
Well, okay, hold on. Before we get to music, because that is the section I just want to finish off
Okay.
Reva, and then we can talk about music. So
Yeah,
when-
because for me, related to like character arcs, but
Right.
but yeah, if we're gonna talk about it later,
yeah. We can literally bring it up as I just want to finish off Reva. So Reva, I agree with basically everything. Like, great idea, lots of cool things. I think Moses Ingram did a fantastic job with what she was given, and in some there are some parts where I'm just like, wow, she's really giving it her all. And there's other parts where I'm just like, yeah, I don't think anyone could do anything with that dialogue or that writing sort of thing. And I do think that one thing that we haven't brought up that I actually really liked was how the Inquisitors are so what's the word, like, they embody the Sith in the sense of how competitive they were. Like, they're all trying to gun for the position of Grand Inquisitor, right? And that's so much of what the core of the Sith is about, is that they're always competing with each other. They're always trying to one up each other and, like, through any means necessary, gain ultimate power, sort of thing. And it's always like, I've talked about this with Diego, where like, this is always the reason why the Sith lose. Like, they've always are about to win. I'm just like, oh, well, now's the perfect time for me to secure my position as the Supreme Chancellor or Supreme Leader, and then like, oh, I guess we're just gonna lose the war now or something like that. That's the point. The other thing I want to say is I really want to echo what Abby said, is that the people who did abuse not only Moses Ingram or any other actor or actress that's ever been involved with Star Wars or any other property, like, that's just like inexcusable sort of thing. Like, I know that's been something that unfortunately happened to Kelly Marie Tran. Most notably, it happened to Jake Lloyd. Like, this poor boy is in a mental hospital because of what people did to him, sort of thing. I know the actor, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, who portrayed Jar Jar Binks. He had like a suicide attempt sort of thing. Like, it's like, calm down, guys. It's just a show. Like, it's just Star Wars. Like, fucking chill out with all that. So definitely want to throw that out there and just be like, it's completely inexcusable in that way.
But Adam, they made Star Wars political.
Oh my god.
They introduced a black character.
Oh
They
my
made it
God.
political.
Get me out of the simulation. Get me out. Anyway, but Diego, you were talking about the music in the show, which is I'm glad that you brought that up. So Natalie Holt is the composer for this. I know that they used some of the compositions already done by John Williams, I believe. And Natalie Holt had done some of the music on Loki, which is actually my favorite Marvel TV show. That's besides the point. When it comes to the music, I'll be honest with Diego, answering your question, I don't remember anything. Like, nothing memorable sticks out in my head.
This is like one of the biggest disappointments of the show for me, because even with something as fucking disappointing as Boba Fett, like the fucking, I can still hear like the opening and the closing theme,
Mhm.
because it feels like a complete like that's his identity, right? And with just like the Obi-Wan series, like I thought I thought the opening theme would also stick out a little bit more, but I also completely forgot it. I don't fucking know what it sounds like.
Right.
And I think like this is like the biggest issue for me, because and also to what Abby was saying before, I actually still enjoyed this show,
Me too.
and like I'm extremely critical of it, because I know how good Star Wars stuff can be. It's like
Mhm.
the only thing I would spend hours shitting on, because like I know how good it could be.
Sure.
But
It's
but
a weird compliment, but okay.
but 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 exactly where that the biggest disappointment with me lies in that aspect is like, even when it's utter garbage, like the music is still phenomenal.
Mhm.
And just like nothing stuck out to me in the show that was like a good, like like I would have thought that the Inquisitors would have their own theme,
Mhm.
that Riva would have her own like little spin on it, that maybe there's like a hint in there that like, oh, she's actually like a Padawan, or like, you know, a more like light side spin on the like her what's the musical term for like a character theme, a motif.
Mhm.
Like there were no motifs throughout the show. The only time I recognized a motif was Leia's theme,
Yes,
but
I remember that.
that's already like, it was already
A
a John
motif.
Williams
Yeah.
composition.
Yeah.
So I just, it blows my mind, honestly. Like I was like, you can make anything in Star Wars good by giving it good music. I would actually argue that like the entire medium is carried by the compositions of the music.
Mhm.
Because all of it is like, I would say all of it is just perfect.
Mhm.
But there is nothing in this show that was like, nothing stuck out.
I mean, on that note, right? Kenobi is supposed to be like this bridge between the prequel and the sequel trilogy, and one of the best parts about the prequel trilogy is by far the soundtrack. John Williams, I think he knocked out of the park on those. I still listen to some of those to this day. I still hear them in my head, whether it be Battle of the Heroes, Duel of the Fates. There's so many
Across the Stars.
Across the
Wow.
Stars.
Across the Stars is fucking amazing.
There's so many iconic, and I remember this too, playing so many Star Wars video games growing up, like Star Wars Clone Wars or whatever. Like the themes just like stick out in your head.
I could describe to you a scene, Adam, and something would come to mind, right? Like a vehicle chase sequence. What
Mhm.
song comes to mind?
I
Like,
could hear it. I don't remember. I don't know all
yeah,
the song titles, sort of thing.
yeah, but you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I think that goes for anyone that would like, you can describe something and there's like a thing that exists for it, like
Mhm.
almost like a motif for scenes rather than characters.
Sure, sure. Jason and Abby, anything that you want to add when it comes to the music for this show?
Abby, you can go first if you'd like.
I don't know. You know my family. We got tapes and VHSs of John Williams. We got Jurassic Park. We got Star Wars. We got Indiana Jones. We got Schindler's List. We love that man. I am not jealous of Natalie's job. I have to say that, though.
Yes,
I am
absolutely.
not jealous of any musician or composer
Right.
that has to do that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Mhm.
I do not. Even Hans Zimmer is still like, I am in the footsteps of John Williams, and I'm like, yeah, even though he's an icon. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
that is a hard thing to be there. It was very forgettable, and I do have to say, I think comparing it to Mandalorian is a good thing, because Ludwig, who did the music, also
Yes.
Fight On, USC Trojan, he made such a memorable theme that was so unlike anything we've ever heard before,
Right.
but it was so Star Wars.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it can be done, but it's also, I don't know, those standards are kind of, I don't
No,
wanna say unreasonable, but like, I
it's
don't
so
know.
hard. It's so hard, and I'm glad that you said that, because like I think
Yes.
back to Rogue One soundtrack, and there's some great tracks in there, but it's also some like, yeah, I don't even remember what happened there. Like,
sure.
and that was Michael Giacchino, however you say it. Like, and he's
Michael
phenomenal.
Giacchino.
He's
Yeah.
phenomenal composer. Like, he's done some really, really good stuff. Like, listen, Up, best Pixar movie. Don't at me. But right, like at the same time, right? Like, I don't even think that was his best work on Rogue One. And it just shows how hard it is to follow up on a property that has such a legacy. It's like if you asked someone to do like, right, like I'm sure for the upcoming Lord of the Rings Amazon Prime series, the composer for that, how do you even live up to what Howard Shore did on the original trilogy? Like, you can't.
I don't
Like,
know.
how do you even begin to approach it, sort of thing?
You got to go completely different, which I think Ludwig did.
Right.
Yeah.
Jason, was there anything you're going to say about the music?
Echoing what Diego said and what Abby said. Abby, I agree. That's huge shoes to fill, and I wouldn't want to do that. I'm tone deaf. I'm tune deaf, not tone deaf. I'm tune deaf. And Mandalorian and Boba Fett. That's actually one of the highlights of Boba Fett was the well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I love that shit.
Yeah.
It's great. But I was rewatching, so I finally finished 2 and 3 in the last 2 days, and I was going backwards, so I did 3 and then 2. The end of episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where it's the juxtaposition of Anakin marrying Padme with the Empire rising. So it was. Is that what "Looking to the Stars" is? What's the name of that song?
Across the Stars.
Is that the?
It's the love ballad.
The love ballad. Oh, it's phenomenal. But a mix of those two, like they cut between that and then ends with the main Star Wars theme, is incredible. Like there was obviously no dialogue for that scene. It was just like the troops getting into formation.
Begun the Clone War has. Come on, that was an iconic line. Sorry.
Yeah. So like that, like the last 3 minutes of that movie, no dialogue, and it was completely done by music, and it evoked all the themes that you felt. Like when you talk about music, that's the first thing I thought of was. So I watched it a few hours ago, I'll bet, but still, like it stuck with me. Obi-Wan, the biggest fault wasn't that the music wasn't memorable; it was that they try to trick us into thinking that we're going to have memorable music. So by having Duel of the Fates in the trailer, and I'm pretty sure they had it in that preview in the very beginning of
like the little flashback retrospective thing,
which was honestly the best part of that show. It kind of tricked us. It was like, we're gonna give you Duel of Fates, like we're gonna give you a la Duel of Fates. You like Duel of Fates, and then it didn't do it, which is fine. Like it's okay to do new things, but to tease that you're gonna have it and then not supply it or not give anything of that magnitude, it was forgettable. I really couldn't tell you a tune from this song, from this show. Couldn't. Not a single tune. So yeah, I felt a little tricked.
Yeah, it's definitely a missed opportunity. Go ahead, Diego.
So there is, because you started talking about Rogue One, I was curious, and I had to find this video. But there is a video I want to link to you for you to watch at some point about Rogue One's soundtrack. And I think I think Giacchino actually fucking killed it with what's her name? Jin's theme at the end.
No, yeah, that's the one that sticks out in my head.
Yeah. And I think coming from I actually very good point by Abby. It's hard to fill those shoes, and I wasn't even thinking about this because in my mind coming from Boba Fett and Mando, both were composed by Ludwig Göransson, right? Who is taken what John Williams has done and turned he just essentially has taken that and made something with it in Mando and Boba Fett, right?
Right.
So it was confusing to me that I didn't think about who was composing this. It was just naturally you would think that they would bring back the same guy, right? So maybe it was an issue of while they were working on Mando and Boba Fett, there was just not enough time for this guy to also compose the music
scheduling conflicts.
In Obi-Wan, and I think this is also the same problem that I was talking about before. Was just they're spreading stuff too thin, because they want to keep the shows coming out in cycles, or it's you don't want to unsubscribe from Disney Plus because it's oh, whatever gap is not season 2, baby, let's go.
Right.
Whatever gap isn't when there's gaps in between Star Wars stuff, you watch whatever Marvel shit comes out.
Right.
So just the most unfortunate casualty of all this, for me, has been the fucking music.
Right. What were you gonna say, Jason?
To add to Diego there, it is a matter of just continuing product. Now that we're in it, it's a different merchandise they're selling us. It's not going to the movies and buying a lightsaber. It's staying home and subscribing and staying subscribed and hours logged into the site. So that's why it turned into a show rather than a movie, because that's they're losing us 4 hours, maybe 3 hours of content that we'd be on there instead of elsewhere by having it be a movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's just them trying to elongate till the next one. So they're just gonna keep producing stuff that is thinner, but it's less content. It's just thin. It's just spread out too
Right.
thin. Yeah, it's just very obvious. And it's like sad. It's sad watching, knowing you're just being sold a product instead of an idea that someone had. They're like, we need to put this to script and on
Mhm.
film. No, it's
Or
just like, we need to keep you on this subscription service, and
or
it's
at the
very
very
evident these
least,
days.
Jason, I would say the true tragedy is that you can see that there are passionate people behind a project who really care about they're working on, but because of things that are outside of their control, right? You can tell that it's maybe not their original vision or as good as it could be. Like we've been saying about like great ideas but poor execution. Like I think that this show is a perfect example of that. If they like maybe another year working on the script, or I think this could have been phenomenal, sort of thing, and like be as good and as celebrated as maybe Mando season 1 or something like that, right? But whether it be because, like you said, the content machine, the mouse demanded, like, hey, we need this. It's coming out next year. That's what you got. That's what you're getting, sort of thing. I don't know that for a fact, but it's certainly like I think that's part of why all of us are to a degree frustrated with this show, is because we could see the potential of how good it could be, but instead it is not, sort of thing.
Can I add to that real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, to the point of like, oh, they just need to pump it out, and it's just like, no, just get it out in the can. I think it's near fact now that there was like a full script of the show that Kathleen Kennedy scrapped. So there was another version of Obi-Wan that existed as a series. I think there was a movie, then they made it in a series, and they scrapped the original script of the series and then made this. So I'm curious to whatever she thought was problematic or an issue, et cetera, of the original script to what we actually got. Because
Right.
I'd love to see that. I'd be
Yeah,
curious.
it would definitely be interesting to hear kind of like how the story and just the series in general kind of developed, going from movie to series to subsequent series. So we've been talking a lot about many of the characters, but there's one that we haven't talked about, and it's clearly a central pillar of the show, and it is Leia, right? I think a lot of people going to the show probably thought it would be centered around Luke, and naturally so. I mean, Kenobi's on Tatooine. Those are the two characters that are usually linked together. But at the same time, I would say that I'm actually kind of glad that we got a chance to highlight Leia, because we've gotten a lot of Luke, whether it be in Mando or in Book of Boba Fett, that sort of thing. And so we haven't seen too much of Leia in the shows. So I think that overall, I would say I like I like the arc that Leia goes through, as well as how she impacts Kenobi. I think that's cool, and it does kind of give a little bit of added context to how she goes out to reach out to Obi-Wan for help in A New Hope, sort of thing. I think that that's cool. But there's so much of this show where, like, when it comes to her, where I'm just like, okay, the actress is doing a fantastic job, especially given. Listen, let's not mince words. Trying to embody Carrie Fisher is no easy task, sort of thing. I think she does a great job. I just think like kind of there's so much like filler and so much just like, oh my god, like what is happening right now? Like the like I like what you said, Jason, where I do think she does embody like what Princess Leia is like as we know her. But at the same time, I think that there's so much where she's given just bad dialogue, or she's made out to be stupid to create another conflict, sort of thing. Unfortunately, but at the same time, I do think there are also certain moments, and this is really one of my biggest gripes with the show, is that like there's so many character moments, especially between her and Obi-Wan, that are so good. Like I think a lot about the interaction on like the back of the truck, where she's asks like, "Oh, you knew my mother. Like, what was she like?" sort of thing, and like they have that conversation, or I think back on like the path transport at the end, where she doesn't want Obi-Wan to go, but Obi-Wan talks to her and just like, "No, you are the future. This is why I'm doing this." Like, there's so many little moments where I feel like that's really good, and I think that the talking character moments is actually what I wanted more of. Like, there's a part of me that wanted Obi-Wan to talk to Anakin more and just be like we got a little bit of it, but I almost wanted more of just like Obi-Wan. I felt like Obi-Wan would be the type of person where like, oh, I have a second chance. Now I can try to redeem him. And like, I know I didn't do a good job this time or the first time. Now I have a chance to like really talk and be like Anakin, like, blah, blah, blah. That was something I was hoping for. And certainly I think that Leia was good, but at the same time I can understand why some people might have found her annoying or something like that. But how'd y'all feel about Leia in this show? And was that something that you were happy to see? Were you disappointed at the lack of Luke? How'd y'all feel?
I just have to say the Leia quote that I think Carrie Fisher always talked about, where it's like she wrote in Wishful Drinking, her autobiography, is they didn't know how to make Leia strong, so they made her angry, which I think is kind of interesting when thinking about that character, because she is snarky. She is kind of a smart aleck.
Right.
That is the character. And so
Right.
for people getting mad at that, it's like, okay. But if you look at Leia in the original trilogy, she's pretty snarky and she's pretty rude. She's
Right.
very capable, but she doesn't,
Right.
she's kind of rude. And I think that is part of her character, is that she doesn't take anything and she is kind of on a mission all the time. She's very objective.
Right.
So I thought that was a good job. And I think it's interesting because someone was saying, I thought it was just a Twitter thread that was like, oh, what if he had found out about Leia throughout all of this? What would have changed?
Yes.
What is that what if?
Right.
And you go, okay, so Leia probably would have been stolen. Alderaan would have been dead. She would have been a Sith. We're done. The series is done. And so it's interesting when you compare that also, though, when you think about to Return of the Jedi,
Mhm.
when Vader finds out that there's two of them, and he's like,
Right.
there's a sister. So I think that, I mean, the core of, as I said about Star Wars, is family
Right.
and about hope. And that, I think Leia was the hope. And for
Mhm.
Obi-Wan, Leia was the hope, which is interesting because we think it's Luke with a new
Right.
hope. It's Luke. Luke is the new hope and the star of
Right.
the fourth film. But with this, I think for Ben's character, Leia is this new hope for the future, right?
Mhm.
And that's like bonking you over the head. We get that. We get that. But I think the power of her with Anakin is how to see, and we even saw that at the ending, right? Of like, you have your father's brashness, you're really
Right.
obnoxious. Like some of these traits that Anakin has, it's like,
Right.
you are your father's daughter and you can't help it. But he sees that within her and how to reconcile that
Mhm.
with hopefully the good she can do.
Mhm.
And I think that is the core of it, is seeing his best friend within her, and how maybe, like you said, the second generation, how can we make this go right
Right.
this time when so much of it is still the same, aka her being a smart aleck in that mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did like how she kind of, right in the beginning, she was so rebellious and like kind of did whatever she wanted, but by the end, right, she understands that she does have a role to play, right, and that was cool to see, right, that Obi-Wan and kind of their interactions are what caused that. I'll say this though, and of course I'll let people talk about Leia in a second, but I hated that last scene, like what you talked about, Abby, not because of the
Yeah.
interaction, because I think the interaction is actually great. I just hate the fact that it took place on this landing pad. Obi-Wan comes from Tatooine, okay? And he has a 5-minute conversation, right? One, also, isn't this boy supposed to be, trying to be in hiding? Oh, let's have this conversation right out
On
in
a
the open
landing pad.
on this starport. I'm sure no one's gonna notice me here. The Empire is definitely not here on this Empire world. It's like, what is happening?
That's true.
Great interaction. Like the dialogue, it was actually for once pretty on point, and I really liked the acting between the two, the kind of back and forth. It was just like the setting is just like somebody, like, guys, like, he's supposed to be in hiding. Like, what happened? Or sorry. Anyway, Jason and Diego, how'd you all feel about Leia in this show?
Diego, you can go first if you'd like.
This is actually like one of the better parts of the show for me. And I think this kind of plays into like how I feel about most of the media, in which like the action is really not good unless it's like animated or part of a game, in my opinion. So like you said, Adam, I like when they stop to do like more character focused stuff.
Yeah.
And like when the dialogue is good, the dialogue is good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like again, like just Leia was the highlight of the show for me. Like besides like getting to see Anakin and Obi-Wan together again.
Right.
Like her portrayal of it, like the actress, like she's literally like 9 or 10 when the show was filmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it's incredible how well she can portray Carrie Fisher's Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Just like exactly everything Abby said about just like she comes off as like snarky and rude and stuff, but like she's very objective.
Right.
It's crazy how like a young kid can can portray an adult character like that.
She's great. She's amazing.
Right. And just like the scene, I think like the best scene of the like like overall of the show, like besides the fan service stuff, I think the scene on the back of the truck is actually fucking incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Just from like a meta theme standpoint, like just like yeah, that is something that would happen in real life. Like it's almost like seeing a fucking like seeing the Empire thing on the back of the truck is almost like a fucking jump scare.
Right.
Because you're like, oh shit. And then yeah, this like really friendly dude who is just like, oh, he's sides with the Empire because they bring stability or whatever. Right? It feels
it's all about order, Diego. You don't understand.
Exactly. Like that guy exactly exists.
Right.
And like
yeah.
the scariness of that scene is how real it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know that there would be those exact people in real life.
Yeah.
And just like it feels tense. Like that is a perfect example of like something well done in the show in terms of like their setup. You don't know like, oh, this seems like a friendly alien, because like thus far every alien in Star Wars that has been friendly at the beginning like stays friendly for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to go back to like Leia and stuff, it's just like the acting in that scene was also just incredible.
Right.
Like I think that was Ewan McGregor at his best.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought like the chemistry between the two of them was just like amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that scene actually brought me to tears.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was like, "I wish I was your father."
Right.
And I was just like, dude, what the fuck?
Right.
And like again, because like I was not expecting the show to be about Leia at all.
Right.
And when she appeared, I was like, oh, I guess they could do something with Leia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still like disappointed that the entire like exactly how Jason said, it was mostly an escort mission.
Right.
But I like, had they not fallen to this trope that they've been doing for like the last 3 shows, right?
Right.
Like I think Leia was easily like the best part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Stole it entirely.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. What I'll say is I can't wait to see what else she does. I kind of reminded me of 2 recent child actors that really stuck out to me was what's his name in Room with Brie Larson. I forget his name, but I think his performance there was great. And then I also think of the actor in Looper, the child actor in that. I think he was really good too. But they're escaping me. Anyway, Jason, finish this off, man. What you think about Leia?
The Looper kid is great. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
To echo Diego and Abby's sentiments, I think that's really lovely. That it's true, like that the moment where he's like, I wish I had a kid like that, and like
Right.
that I could raise her to be the best she could be, but given the circumstances.
Mhm.
But also, I'm going to be the devil's advocate,
Oof.
and I did not like Leia at all in this show.
Oof.
Oh no.
Oof. Yeah, I know.
No, it's okay. Hey, dude, we all have differing opinions on this show, so don't even worry about it. You're good.
I guess it was just a matter of, well, it's not a matter of like a kid actor. It's just a few things. First thing, when she helped the control panel when they were in that sound stage, remember when the blast doors at the episode 5, whatever, they needed her to
when she was like crawl into the vent and
right.
Like, yeah.
And
okay.
I get that Obi-Wan trusts her because he knows that she has a way with the Force, and her father was a great mechanic. But
right.
also in a time of that dire, I wouldn't trust a kid to just do that, especially if she's a princess. She probably doesn't really do much groundwork, like getting her hands dirty, because she's a princess. So I would, especially in with that timely of a duty, I wouldn't have trusted a kid. Nor everyone was like, oh yeah, let's just let this 7-year-old, 10-year-old just take care of it. But that's a nitpick, no big deal.
Sure.
My biggest complaint with Leia, besides it being an escort mission, I still think that just was overdone to all hell. Is if this woman if Leia, at the end he says to Leia, you have to keep this a secret, which I get because obviously continuity. But when and in the New Hope, when Ben Obi-Wan dies, because she knows who it is at this point, there's no way she forgot him. She does not care that Obi-Wan died at all. This person was so integral to your life, saved you, opened your eyes to like new possibilities and being a new person, and you don't really grieve for him. I guess I'm a stickler for continuity in this case, and I'm usually not one to do that, but this show reeked of continuity error that it took me out of the show, so I have to wag the finger at that. Her being in it really muddles the water. And the one other nitpick thing was I mentioned before. I do like the truck scene for most of it, and I do like the idea that there is an Empire sympathizer.
Yep.
I think he was voiced by Rogan, right?
No, he was. I thought it was Seth Rogen too. I actually
Sounds
looked
like
up.
him.
Yeah, it did. He's actually Zach Braff.
Oh wow. Okay, I can kind of see that.
Yeah, I thought it was Seth Rogen too. I was waiting for him. I was waiting for the classic Seth Rogen laugh. Like I was waiting for it.
Oh my god.
But I do love that concept that someone would sell them out. It reminded me of has anyone read Saga? Great.
I know which Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah,
you
you'd love
the
it,
last
Adam.
man. I know I would.
That moment seemed like a perfect Saga moment. Like that, like they think they're safe, but he's just a sympathizer. Like that's so. It was a great tense moment, but the plot had to be written so crappy that it was a matter of him accidentally saying her name. That's what I was like. You couldn't write it any other way than instead like him actually saying Leia, and the stormtroopers like, wait, what'd you just say? Did you say Leia? Like it's dumb. That was dumb. But the concept of Leia being in the show and being so integral, it's just it messes up too much continuity that I think they could have just wrote something else. I mean, I'm not a writer to say that, but I didn't like the path they took.
A thing I want to give about that is this I sort of will steal from the Red Letter Media review. Is I think it's what's the word? I think it's futile to care about continuity at this point because it's clear that the writers don't give a shit, right?
Sure.
So I wanted to take it, like, even though I was taken out of it for so many times because of, like, the continuity errors. It's like I'm trying to take it like as a thing on its own,
right?
But no, I definitely still, like, that being said, I agree with Jason, like, with what I said before about, like, the show having to justify itself. I was, like, waiting the entire time. I'm like, I'm waiting to see what Obi-Wan says at the end of the show to Leia to, like, make all of this, like, okay, right? And I was not prepared for it to be as simple as, like, you have to pretend like we don't know each other.
It kind of comes off creepy in a weird, out of context, a very creepy scene.
Sure.
Jokingly, so like this guy saying, "Remember, we never spoke. we didn't have this adventure together. Remember that."
I get you.
Jokes aside,
yeah.
I know, but only the other thing I was going to say too is, like, I agree with you, Jason, in the sense that there are some parts of that truck scene that I think are like just like, huh? Like I remember when the stormtroopers get on and they're like, "Hey, so what's your story?" And then, like, it's like, "Oh, it's a long story. Don't worry." And then the guy's like, "Well, we've got a lot of time, so tell us a story." And like 2 minutes later, it's like, "All right, well, this is our stop." It was like, "What? That wasn't a long time at all." What are you talking about? And there's also a lot of weird jumps like that in this show. Like I think about how Reva found, like, the path, like little, like, tunnel thing, which is really cool, by the way. I like the concept of the path. And then, like, she was like, and then, like, somehow she ended up at the end of the tunnel before. Like, how did she even know where the end of the tunnel went to? Like, what? There was stuff like that, and then I think we already talked about this before. How she got stabbed with the lightsaber, and then we don't see it, but then she somehow recovered, got onto a ship that was there, then flew a hyperdrive to Tatooine to try and find Luke and Owen. It was just like, wait, whoa, we're jumping really, really, really quick here, sort of thing.
Right.
Or another thing that jumps out to me too is, like, when they're infiltrating the base, right? Which is, I hate this episode. I can't even, like, I just think it's so bad. First off, you're telling me that in Star Wars they don't have fucking earpieces, that they're just using the mic, like, sort of thing? There's no mute button on the mic? Like, come on. Like, I refuse to believe this. I refuse that they don't have the technology. But anyway, so that's beside the point. But, like, I remember when that was happening, right? When Tala does the distraction, and then, like, Kenobi's like, "Oh, she's close. I know where to go." It's just like, you never even been to this base before. How do you even know where to go? Like, and I guess you could be like, "Oh, it's the Force, it's speaking to me." But I just, like, there's so many things where just like, well, we're, like, jumping all over the place. I don't know what's going on, sort of thing. But I'm glad. I'll say this. I might disagree with you, Jason, but I'm glad that you brought it up in terms of like Leia, because certainly I can understand the sentiment. Um, there's a lot of other stuff in this show. There's a lot of like new characters, side characters that we were kind of introduced to. Kumail Nanjiani has a pretty substantial role as Haja, as like a fake Jedi. And we see some other characters, like there was the cameo by Tamora Morrison as like the veteran clone trooper that was homeless, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That was cool.
Yeah. We also had a couple of other people, like we talked about Liam Neeson. He kind of shows up later. Ian McDiarmid shows up as Palpatine later in the show. We also had, Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits reprising his role from Rogue One, as well as the original trilogy. So out of all these characters, I think the most notable one that was really introduced is probably Tala. Obviously, we also had O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son, as Colin, I think his name is. And I thought his performance was good.
That's Ice Cube's son?
Yeah, O'Shea Jackson Jr. He plays him in Straight Outta Compton. He plays his dad.
I have to say, there was one line with him where I was like,
Huh.
bro, the one where he's like, my wife died, and then 3 lines later, I guess you're right. I was like, what?
No,
I literally jumped up off the couch, me and my boyfriend. We went, what?
I was watching with my dad. I was like, huh? That was quick.
I got whiplash. I went, bro. I just imagine as an actor, right? You're going through your scene and you're like breaking it apart, and you have to do character study, right? Where you're like, okay, here's my subtext, and it's like I'm trying to think of what his subtext
right.
was.
It was like,
I'm like, where?
I think I was so bored at that point that I didn't even notice that. But now thinking back on it, like, oh wait, yeah. Like there was, it felt like there was a moment of hesitation.
It was literally 30 seconons. He was like, no, I ain't doing it. This is too dangerous. We can't do it. It's like, yeah, but what about this? No, you're right. Let's do it. Let's do it. What? This is like bizarre.
Yeah.
But we should definitely talk about Indira Varma's character Tala, because she has a pretty substantial role as an Imperial double agent trying to help people. And she does end up sacrificing herself. A little over dramatic, I'm not gonna lie. It's like holding out the detonator for everyone to see. It was like, whatever, Star Wars, do your thing. But overall, how'd y'all feel about Tala? I actually liked what they did with the character, even if it felt kind of rushed. And again, the writing of the show just isn't that strong. But I do like Tala and kind of like the idea of the character. What'd you all think of her?
I loved her. I also love the actress's work in Game of Thrones. That's what I kept thinking of, because she was in Game of Thrones.
Oh, I was going to say, I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I had no idea that she was in it. Yeah.
That's where she's from.
Yes, Pedro Pascal. She was Pedro Pascal's wife.
And Pedro Pascal is Mando.
Yeah, and Mando. So they're both in Star Wars.
I see.
I thought she was pretty wonderful. I loved the idea. Okay, it's like this underground.
It's like an underground
Jedi,
railroad sort of thing.
Yeah, underground Jedi network. I thought was really fascinating, and I think again that goes back to what is the rebellion? The rebellion is hope, and where do you find hope? It's in individual people and in collectives trying to make active change, and that's kind of what the path I thought meant, and I was very into that. I actually wish we would spend more time with them, honestly. And I thought like a sacrifice, like you said, how do we feel about characters who self-sacrifice? It has to feel earned, or it has to feel like they're seeking something in return. And I think her moment with Obi-Wan talking about like, you know what, when I did some stuff, I saw some stuff, and I have tried every day since then to come back that. And I thought that was pretty powerful, honestly, as a side character. It was very complete. You know me. I've been on enough of these now, Adam. You know I love resolution. I love a good bow, as we call it in film school. Right. She had a bow for me where it's like, all right, I saw some children die and I saved some children, and now I'm gone. And I was like, all right, you did what you needed to do. Right. Did I particularly adore her a lot? No, but I think she did what she needed to do. And I thought it was an interesting, again, feature within this universe that I think Obi-Wan needed to have for this journey to make sense.
And it's because of her sacrifice that we see Obi-Wan kind of like take a different approach, right? Because at first he's like, he's all general mode sort of thing. Like, all right, we're going to do this. We have to hold out over here. This is the choke point, sort of thing. And then after that, he starts to use intelligence more, starts to think about how Vader or Anakin kind of thinks. So it was definitely interesting to see her kind of cause that change. Diego or Jason, what did you guys think of, I guess, Tala and subsequently her sacrifice?
Jason, you can go ahead.
Oh, right on. Well, like I said before, my levels are all Like I said before with Tala, I really wish they kind of, because they tease there's like a romantic thing going on between Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I would have really liked more of that. Because I think Obi-Wan needs some how do I put it? I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like that would be a great branch for his character, is to have a loved one and him to because he saw through Anakin's eyes. And then like people have made fan theories of like what if there was like a love triangle between Anakin and Padme, which could have been
Yikes.
cool. It's written well. It could have been interesting.
That's a yikes for me. I'm sorry. Keep
Yes, it is a
going.
yikes, but it also could have bolstered Anakin's mistrust of Obi-Wan, which could have been pretty cool to see. But with that being said, him maybe watching that and being like, well, no, I'm with the Jedi Order. I don't need to be with anyone. And then he's out of commission basically. And then he sees someone that he finds is noble and then he has an attraction to, and there's like this connection, this chemistry. And maybe he tempts that connection with this person. That could have been great. But in regards to her actual plot, I thought she was perfectly serviceable. It worked. She was a great actor. But I feel like her sacrifice with the thermal detonator, she could have just threw it. She didn't have to hold on to it. She could have threw it.
Chill, bro.
She could have threw it and then left. But if they had to write her out, they had to write her out. That's my view.
I'm sorry. It just like that just occurred to me. It's like at any point they could have just opened the door and thrown in a thermal detonator.
Thermal detonators are nothing to fuck with. They're very powerful.
Yeah, like a thermal detonator is literally like a mini nuke.
Yeah,
it's different from a grenade.
Right.
Like it is actually literally a mini nuke.
So she could have survived.
Yeah.
But what Abby was saying, I do like that sentiment of she's seen some things, she's helped people. Like put a bow on it. She's like, no, this is my time to go. And on a personal level, I get it if she wants to suicide herself, but otherwise she could have still been kicking.
It does also have a kind of unique, I guess, like connective tissue, for lack of a better term, to Rogue One, which is the other kind of interquel between 3 and 4 in terms of episodes. Because, right, Rogue One is also about not Saw Gerrera. What's his name? The guy played by Mads Mikkelsen. He's also someone who works for the Empire, but is a rebel sympathizer, right? And that's the same thing with Tala, right? She works for the Empire, but she sees how they're wrong and how they're not doing things that she doesn't agree with, and she's trying to, like Abby said, kind of be the change that she wants to see, sort of thing. So I definitely think that's also a cool aspect of the character. Diego, I know that you just recovered from Jason's comment, so what else do you have to say?
Dude, I don't know why that got me so hard. It's like, just throw the grenade.
Yeah,
like, you don't have to hold it.
I haven't seen you laugh like that since we were at the karaoke in Boston.
Oh no! Don't make me start. So it's strange because like Abby and Jason have both described things that just like the shows have already done, which is like a love story with Obi-Wan.
It's Satine,
and, like,
right?
Yeah, it was Satine.
Yeah, with Satine.
Yeah.
And the whole like the Fulcrum plot point that like showed up in Rise of Skywalker with the weird Nazi dude who's like, I just want to get back to Kylo Ren. I don't actually care about what's going on. But like what they refer to him as, which is Fulcrum, is like, I think it's taken straight from Rebels, which is like the person on the inside that is like feeding them information.
Right.
So when you ask like what I felt about Tala, and it's just like I kind of didn't feel anything. I thought like the actress is great. I think she had like a lot of cool moments. And it's weird because it's like this is like the one thing in the show that was like very like, it was good that it was brief and that like had that bow put on it, but just like taken with everything else, it's like it's kind of jarring. Because it feels like she should have a longer impact other than just like, I'm gonna open Obi-Wan's eyes and then that's it. Like that's kind of all she did in a sense. Like it's like, yeah, the side character also needs a side character, but she seemed important enough to have a more like self-determined thing going on. But for whatever reason, it was I mean, because it's Obi-Wan show, and yeah, it's just I found it hard to care, like also with how she died, because it was like not just the grenade throwing thing, but it also seemed more a sacrifice of the robot. Which
I love the robot, by the way. I don't even know this robot's name, but I love him. He was great.
I did too. but it's also like another thing that has been done better, right? Like
Right.
in Rogue One with the robot in Rogue One,
K2SO
which
for you.
K2, yeah, K2SO, like the yeah, it's just the issue with this character is just like more issues I have with the show, where it's just like this, like the ideas that they're getting, which now that actually that I think about it, Jason, what you said makes a lot of sense. That like I'm very curious of what the original script looked like, because I'm willing to bet that there was not as much like, "Hey, here we're gonna pick and choose the stuff from the other shows
Mm.
and just like put this little Frankenstein monster together
Mm.
of like plot point,
I'm
like how to get from one plot point to the
Now
other."
that you think about it, I'm also thinking of it wasn't IG-88, but it was that like kind of assassin like droid that also did a self-sacrifice at the end of, what was it, season 1 of Mandalorian, right?
Yeah.
So definitely lots of power. Also, I just want to say, for the robot, I thought he was gonna beat the fuck out of those stormtroopers with that hammer when they showed it, like when he was in the shop. I was
I
like,
thought so
I,
too.
I thought it was gonna turn into like how Boba Fett beat up the stormtroopers with his like stick. I forget what the specific term is for the stick that the Tuskens gave him in Mando season 2. I was like, oh my god, these stormtroopers about to get fucked up, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. So we've talked a lot about the show's other. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Wait,
Yeah,
quick thing about the robot.
yeah,
There was like a Chekhov's gun situation with that robot. They make it clear that the robot doesn't talk in the beginning, and then they never
right,
paid it off. I thought he was gonna say something right before he died.
yeah.
Like, what was the reason of mentioning that he doesn't talk, besides that he just doesn't talk?
All right.
Because like I thought there'd be some payoff there. I mean, he like suicides himself. You think he would say "I love you" or I don't know.
Like, true.
But there's kind of a missed payoff there.
Also, just saying, this droid has some of the best name I've ever seen. Better than the battle droids from the Clone Wars. Better than the Stormtroopers. Like, man, he was the MVP, I think. So there's and is there anything else you guys want to talk about in terms of the character work? Because the last thing I probably want to talk about is cinematography and action before we kind of wrap things up. But there was a couple of other characters. So go ahead, Jason. Anything you want to talk about in particular?
I guess I really want to go into why I feel like they misused Obi-Wan and they ruined his whole legacy. Therefore,
Sure. Actually, that's good too, because I also want to talk about just the overall ending, because I think that's something it's super important to focus on. But go ahead.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ending. Basically, it's just the ending.
Right.
Letting Reva live and letting Vader live.
Mm-hmm.
Vader's at fault for Alderaan dying. Millions and millions of people dying is now Obi-Wan's fault.
Mm-hmm.
He could have stopped it right there. I get it. Vader's now like it's not Anakin anymore. He's like, I killed Anakin. I did it, not you. So I'm
Right.
Vader, and he calls him Darth. Yeah, I get that's a very sweet thing. So he ties into New Hope, but he could have
Sure.
killed him right then and there. Billions of people could have lived. So he should have that weigh on his conscience. And then with Reva, yes, like it's sweet that he's like, no, you're not a bad person. But also, this Obi-Wan, if in New Hope, this man cut off a man's arm just because he spoke to Luke wrongly. So I
Mm-hmm.
could imagine he would kill Reva because she has all the secrets now. She knows he's
Right.
alive. She knows who Vader and the whole Anakin connection. She knows about the kids. Like, kill her. Like, don't let any loose ends ruin everything else. Because who knows? She might be good now, and then she might get swayed to the dark side later. So that's a big loose end. But that one I can kind of forgive because they need to make more sequels. So Reva needs to have her own show. Keep her around. Why not? But Vader had to die in that moment. Him letting Vader live is beyond dumb, and it ruins Obi-Wan for me.
I do think something that Abby, you had brought up before, was something along the lines of like, so much of what Star Wars is about philosophical questions, and I do think it would have been cool for the show to kind of explore that, of like, is it morally correct for Obi-Wan to kill Vader, sort of thing, right? That was the original idea in Episode 3.
Yeah.
But now that Obi-Wan knows, right, that Anakin is still alive, is it his duty to finish the job, sort of thing?
Yeah.
And what does that
yeah.
actually mean? I think that would have been a super interesting thing. And also, again, I'm just going to say it out there, would have been great if Obi-Wan meditated and talked to Qui-Gon to get Qui-Gon's opinion, to be like, hey, yo, Qui-Gon, you're the one who told me to take care of this kid. What am I supposed to do? Sort of thing. I would have loved to have seen what Liam Neeson had to say about that. But, I'm not going to,
It's Obi-Wan's fault, too. I mean, it's Qui-Gon's fault, too, because it's his fault that this is all happening. Let's be fair here. Sorry, continue.
Abby and Diego, how do you feel about what Jason said in terms of where Obi-Wan was? Do you think that is a big, I don't even want to call it a plot hole so much as just like a failing to see the narrative through line, I guess, from episode 3 to episode 4? Is that something that you noticed, or how do you feel?
Abby, you can go first if you have something.
You go. I have to think about that. I am ethically asking myself this question.
So it's a weird thing, because if you do the correct thing, that is also a continuity error. That I'm thinking about it now, because how would Obi-Wan be the cheery old dude he is in episode 4
Right.
if Reva redeems herself and then he has to kill her anyway,
Right.
right? So there just isn't any winning here. Like the fact that the show went the way it did, there's no winning,
Mhm.
right? It's like I said before, like the writers don't give a shit. It is a really interesting question though, and I think like Jason is absolutely right with saying like it is absolutely your fucking duty to like kill this woman. She knows too much. And like to leave Vader alive after what hell you watched him commit
Right.
to this village is also like that one's like that one's a bit more open ended
Mhm.
than the one with Reva, because with Reva it's like unequivocally like, yeah, you have to do this,
Mhm.
or maybe, right? But like with Vader, it's like you show like, is it fair for you to show mercy to this guy who has shown none himself over the course of this everything that's going on?
Right.
You can kind of go like wherever with it.
Mhm.
Like I think we could talk for hours about like, is it right for him to leave him there? Probably not.
Right.
But also, what would you do in that situation if like your best friend who you thought you murdered,
Mhm.
or like at worst like left there to be in pain, suffering for hours until he died, and then you find out he's alive, and then now you have to kill him for real this time?
Right.
Like, would you do it?
Mhm.
Like despite all the ethical questions of like, yeah, he literally killed all these people,
Right.
but you're gonna leave him alive because you don't have the strength to do it.
Mhm.
And that isn't like, and that is, those are like very interesting questions that I think the show did not focus on.
Right.
And especially with Reva, because it's like you could make the argument for both, and it's like if he is committed to his duty, I'll say at least it's consistent. Like if he's not gonna kill Darth Vader,
Mhm.
then it kind of makes sense that he's not gonna kill Reva.
I would agree with that.
That's what I would say. I would say that's not Obi-Wan's character. I think neither of those actions are who he is and who we've seen him
Yeah.
to be ever.
Mhm.
In Clone Wars and Attack of the, like, ever. That is not something he would do. And so I don't want to say it's defeatist, but I think Obi-Wan himself, I don't want to say he's not defeatist, but I think he himself knows he could beat him up. I think he knows he can't kill him, honestly. And I think he maybe understands that that's not his part in this destiny. That's not his role to play.
Mm.
And I think that's a very interesting point. But yeah, he would not, in my mind, would not kill Reyna. I don't care if she has information. This is someone who went through something that he feels guilt about. I don't think he would perpetuate that further. And then with Anakin, it goes against his moral fiber of what that character is. As like, even I go back to D&D a lot, right? But of like a lawful good character. I don't know. Yeah.
It is a super interesting question. I'm so glad that you brought it up, Jason, because like I think the fact that we're asking the question also kind of goes back to what we were saying before about like the fact that the show doesn't explore that as a bit of a missed opportunity, right? About like now that Obi-Wan knows that Anakin is still alive, what is the morally correct thing to do to ensure the future, sort of thing. And I think that there's definitely a lot of dialogue and a lot of story that could have kind of gone back and forth, whether it be between him and someone else. Like maybe he talks to Bail Organa, who like can just Skype him anytime, apparently. Like also, I just love that, by the way. Hey man, I know I'm not supposed to contact you, and it's been a while, but I just want to check in, and I just want to make sure you're okay, sort of thing. But point being though, like right, who else is he going to talk to that knows about what happened, sort of thing? And he's just like, dude, like, do you know that Vader's Anakin? Like, what the fuck, like, sort of thing. So there's definitely some interesting kind of character dynamics that weren't explored. So I'm really happy you brought that. I'm like, just similar to Abby, I'm still thinking about it, just like, like, what are the implications there, and how could you formulate the story so that I guess like it makes sense continuity wise and character wise.
Can I add?
Go ahead, of course.
First, let's do that. First thing, obviously Disney just wrote themselves in a corner. So like this didn't need to happen. This problem never needed to exist. Where we have to
Sure.
question like, oh man, should Obi-Wan kill Vader? Like 3 set it up perfectly. He thought he died. He didn't think that Palpatine was going to come and save him. So yes, like he left his friend to burn to death.
Right.
So like there's that. But to what Abby was saying, I contest. You were saying that in the previous movies, shows, whatever, that's not Obi-Wan's character. I disagree. I watched 2 and 3. Obi-Wan is a very trigger happy motherfucker. He really like he draws his saber almost every time first. And with a Dooku, so like at the end of Attack of the Clones, there's that thing on oh fuck, I'm trying to remember.
Geonosis.
So Geonosis, then they're flying the ships. The clones come, save the day, save the surviving Jedi, and then they go after Dooku. Padme falls out of the ship that the clones were driving, and then Anakin's like, "No, we gotta stop and save Padme." He's like, "No, we need to take care of Dooku because this is our duty. Our duty is to protect the Republic and save all lives at any cost." So like Padme will be fine. And he was like, what would Padme do in this situation to like get Anakin back on his side? He was like, yeah, she would fulfill her duty. He's like, you're damn right she would. So we need to kill this guy. So if they're going to kill this old man, like track him down and kill him, he would do the same for Vader. Vader is lost. And in the context of if Obi-Wan thinks he's not lost, right, to keep him alive for his own conscience, so he's going to raise his son, Anakin's son, to then kill him. So he's going to make his son go through unnecessary trauma to kill his dad instead of just doing right then and there and Luke having a happy life. Unless he really believed Luke needs to be the new hope. And like it's the Jedi way, even though there's no scripture that said, no, the bloodline needs to kill the bloodline. He should just done it right then and there, saved a lot of heartache, saved a fucking planet. I'm pointing at a planet literally right there. That's great. He's going to save the planet. So it's just nonsense. Disney completely ruined their whole structure there by making us even question this. Like it was perfectly fine before. So it didn't need to happen. They didn't need to have a Vader fight. Yeah, it was cool, but they didn't need it because now it's causing more questions of what would Obi-Wan do or what should he do, et cetera, et cetera. The Reva stuff, honestly, like I guess, yeah, you're right. It is consistent. If he's not gonna kill Vader, don't kill Reva. He really should have killed Reva for sake of information and potentially blowing this whole thing. But for the sake of character staying and continuing on with whatever story they want to go there, fine, that's whatever. But with Vader, he was gonna kill Dooku easy. Like he was like, we need to save the Republic. This is our duty because the Jedi are police. They're these wizard police in this world. So they have this duty. Yes, he's not a Jedi anymore in a weird way. I don't know if you want to go by if there's any code anymore. But if we're going consistency of the prequels, he should have fucking killed him.
Devil's advocate. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Diego. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to contest the contest, but then I also have a point to add on to Jason, because
This is a
you
spirited
still
debate.
have.
This is a spirit. I like this. Sorry, keep going.
So the easiest way to explain away everything is like, oh, the Force, like the Force wills it.
Force could do anything.
So yeah, like it's not the bad writing, it's the Force that is like, this is your destiny. Which I wonder if there's any piece of Star Wars media that deconstructs the Force acting on its own. I guess we'll never know. Kotor tour. Anyway, to add to the point about the Wizard Police, I think like I think that he probably still is. Like he's still holding on to the Jedi code, because it's you could see it in Empire Strikes Back with how Yoda and Obi-Wan's Force Ghost are like telling Luke, don't fuck off and go save your friends. We need to do this here right now. So they're still adhering to the same morals that they were like in the Republic era, which again, it's like the movies are like 40 years, like that movie is like 40 years removed from this show. Writing is terrible, but I think it's like, you're right in that it keeps like going back and forth between like these characters and there's not like a line through that's consistent because of the writing and also just a consequence of time. But I think what you're saying has merit, but I also disagree with the idea that like it's not within. I think for how the universe works, I think it makes sense. I think for the writing being bad, I think Star Wars writing is just bad.
Are you an angel?
Are you an angel?
Wait, quick thing. I think the sand quote is actually really deep. There, I said
Annie,
it.
my goodness, you've grown.
The sand quote is really deep. He was a slave his whole life. Of course, he hates sand, but he likes the sand there because it's like a dream, and it's like he's with the love of his life. But he hates sand because it reminds him of his fucking terrible life that he lived.
Yeah, and he's like this little slave kid who got taken away by space cops. Like, of course he's gonna be awkward.
Yippee!
Oh my
It's a
I
good
god.
line.
I agree.
It's
This is pod racing.
This is pod racing, Adam.
so to circle back to Qui-Gon real quick. Hi. Sorry, my cat's yelling at me. It would have been like you said, Adam. Like Qui-Gon would have had something to say about all this.
And I
Like-
want to
like,
hear what
let's hear what-
Qui-Gon has to say. Like we've gone.
Let's hear what Liam Neeson
Yeah,
thinks.
because the
Right,
kid,
like-
he was like, "Hey, he's the chosen one. Gotta take care of him." Hey, man, you know that kid that you talked about? He's like the apprentice of the Sith Emperor. So like, what was up with that sort of thing? Like, I want to hear what he has to say.
If it would have been hilarious if it turned into some like telephone conversation where it's just like finally Obi-Wan gets his force back.
Mhm.
Is I hate to steal the line, but it's honestly so funny. Like when he gets his mojo back,
Right,
it's like
right.
the Red Letter Media people said it. But it would have been so funny if he has a conversation with Qui-Gon, and then Qui-Gon's like, "Huh," and then he goes to and talks to Anakin himself, and he's like, "Annie, did you kill those kids?" Like,
I hate you.
but functionally though, right? Like that is something you would expect. That like, right? Like this guy who is like, yeah, this is the chosen one. Explain yourself, motherfucker. Like, why did you think that? And then show with the characters like their reactions to the events that take place.
Mhm. I do think that there's a lot to kind of be said there, and I think so much to what Dave Filoni said in one of those Mandalorian like BTS things where he talked about how important the fight is between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon sort of thing, because it's really about the destiny of the galaxy, right? Like because Qui-Gon is the father that Anakin needs sort of thing. And that's part of why I'm so keen to really hear about Qui-Gon and kind of get his take on everything and kind of see how it all plays out. Don't say that. So there's a couple of things I also want to talk about. So, I know that Diego, you had mentioned that you felt like the action wasn't shot that well. Were you saying that for the entire show or a specific fight in particular?
Oh man,
Because I definitely want to hear, I guess, like how you all feel about the action scenes. Then we go to the final fight, which I think is something that we certainly have to discuss, and just the overall ending. Then we can probably wrap things up. So go ahead.
I'll say something the movies I think does better than most of the shows
Mhm.
is the action because of the budget is there, right?
Sure.
Like a lot of the big action set pieces are just like, especially in the prequels, it's just like you cannot like just objectively speaking, I think like I'm gonna throw the big word out there. Objectively speaking, like the action sequences in the prequels are just like unmatched. Like all the war, like you would really
I would
get
say the scale of the war is certainly on display.
right.
Yeah.
That's more what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you really get the scale of the action. And this show is like the worst example of like how to do scale and action at the same time, I think, because you have this like battle that's going like this ground battle between this like platoon of stormtroopers and the rebels inside.
Right.
There is this massive Star Destroyer overhead. This is like the capital ship essentially because it's Vader's ship.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like 50 stormtroopers versus like, you know, like 50 to 100 rebels, right? It's mostly refugees.
Right.
And it's still like the stormtroopers performing as bad as they are on screen, right? But then still gaining ground on the rebels. It's like all of it is extremely confusing. Like from a tactic standpoint, from like from how it looks,
Right.
to just like all of it, right? And like whoever said it before about like this Riva and Obi-Wan talking through the door, and it's just like, does no one behind them like
Hear anything?
like even if they don't hear it, right? It's just like, well, like what the fuck is going on behind them? Like surely Vader can see, or like anyone on the starship. Like sure, maybe they don't have like head-mounted cameras on the stormtroopers,
Right.
even though they probably do. But it's just like all of it is such a like confusing sequence. Like it doesn't feel like a whole thread. It's just like cut up pieces. And then the action itself, it feels so discombobulated, and just like none of it makes any sense. And I think like it is just as bad as like the action sequences at the end of Boba Fett, where it's like these two giant droids are like chasing people down, like chasing them on a straight line, like on the street, and everyone continues to run down in a straight line down the street instead of like going off to the sides where the droids can't get to them. And the droids are also just missing the entire time, right? like this thing that like this crazy threat that is supposed to be extremely dangerous,
Right.
just isn't. And then it doesn't look like it is, but then it is anyway, because it's like, okay, sure, they're gaining ground on them, but then like this one thermal detonator like stops them long enough, and they're still fucked anyway. So it's like it's way too, I don't know, disconnected.
How'd you feel about the lightsaber fights? Besides the last one, we'll talk about that in a second. But like, how'd you feel about the first encounter between Kenobi and Vader?
I actually thought that in terms of like character, that the first fight kind of is on par with the ending, because you can, like, Darth Vader himself is like really on display,
Mm-hmm.
like in the first sequence, because it's like he's just one-handed like beating down Kenobi,
Right.
like not putting in any effort, just like handles him, and that speaks a lot to like where Obi-Wan is as well, right? So I thought it was good. It felt out of place in a way, because it was like, oh, you're not expecting them to meet each other so soon, right? And it's like, oh, obviously this shit is not going to come to like a conclusion 3 episodes in. The action itself was like fine, but it's not meshing well together. Whereas like I don't think I have a complaint about the ending lightsaber duel. I think it was actually shot. That's wrong. I really had a big problem with the shaky cam.
Yes.
It did not look like a Star Wars movie.
Yes, I agree.
Or like anything Star Wars. Like I'd never seen shaky cam in Star Wars before. I was so confused.
Well, I think there was. I haven't seen Rogue One in a while. I think there was some shaky cam in there, but that made sense for what they were going for. I think, in terms of being more of like a gritty, kind of realistic war movie. But I agree with you that I think the way some of the lightsaber scenes were shot, where I was just like, I don't know why we're doing the shaky cam here. This feels a little weird in terms of like the shots that you're choosing. I also like I know we haven't touched on this a little bit, but I thought some of the CG in this show, like, you could tell, like, all right, well, the money clearly went to getting Ewan and Hayden back, because some of the CG, I was just like, all right, the green screen looks a little bad, guys, like pretty bad. So that's definitely something I noticed as well.
The lighting was like super on and off for me.
Yeah.
Because there was sequences where it's like the lighting was low,
Right.
but it would turn out to be like a cool shot. Like you can only see Vader and Obi-Wan through the light emanating from the lightsaber,
which is really cool.
dark.
Which is cool. I like when the lightsabers are used as actually independent light sources, sort of thing. But keep going.
Yeah, I thought that was like pretty creative, and like it looked good,
Right?
And it looked cool for the sake of looking cool, which is, again, like that's fine when it that happens and it's actually like done well,
Right?
But there's other times where it's just like shit. I'm actually having trouble remember if it was this show in particular, but it was just like there just seems to be an issue with lighting in shows overall recently.
Right.
It's just so hard to see shit. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was like stuff in here, because I'm having trouble remembering outside of like the last episode and like the the horror village scenes where it was like got really dark for no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Jason, you look like you have strong thoughts on action in this show.
I thought it was very cheap looking. It looked like it was all. What's that soundstage they've been using lately?
I don't know. Probably
There's
in
like
Atlanta.
there's a special technology ever since Mando where it's basically just in one giant soundstage.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. They use the Unreal Engine so that no matter which camera angle you're at, the LEDs react in real time to wherever the camera
Right.
is, sort of thing. Yeah, I
And
forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
It works to a degree, but when it comes to like battle, I completely agree with everything Diego said. When it comes to battles, it's just so tame, cheap. When they do the invasion of the rebel base, that it felt so small scale and like cool. Claustrophobia is cool and all, like that's a good angle to go with it, but it felt cheap, especially how like nobody was getting shot at, like you were saying earlier. Like it's just absurd. But what I noticed mostly watching the show and then watching the prequels, again, I'm always going to call back to the prequels because I feel like it's a great a judge of the two shows, because like Obi-Wan is so tied to the prequels, that the use of environments in the prequel fights were amazing. Like wherever you were, it mattered to where what's happening in the fight. Here it was always desert and then maybe some rocks being thrown. Other than that, it was very plain Jane kind of fights and no use of the environments to a degree where it like made it exciting to where they were. Like it should matter to their setting and time, place.
Sure.
The lighting of the lightsabers was neat. I liked elements of the first Darth Vader fight where like he dragged him through fire. I liked the idea
that was cool.
I love that Darth Vader is just wants to torment him. That's great. Right. It's still, it doesn't make sense for me logically why they're even fighting, but I like the idea that he just burns himself. Then they kind of take it away with the whole back to tank being like easy way out now. Anyone could just go in a back to tank and be completely fine no matter what in this universe. But I liked elements, but otherwise nothing of note that really wowed me. A lot of quick cuts, a lot of like you're talking about shaky cam. It wasn't even like legit shaky cam. It was post-production shaky cam to hide any errors that they've made while shooting it.
Which it wasn't like worse. Paul Greengrass, what he did with the Bourne movies, where it's just like, okay, this is actually pretty good shaky cam. Like they made that a part of the action. This one, it just felt like, all right, you're just not showing me what's going on, sort of.
They wanted to hide things, and it showed, and it was boring. Didn't really find. And then you were saying about Tala fighting the two stormtroopers and then just smacking one. Oh, ridiculous.
It's just like it's a Looney Tunes sketch at that point.
Exactly. So action really did nothing for me. Cinematography was just very plain. There might have been a cool.
There was a couple of shots where I was really like, I remember there's that one shot where it's on Vader and he's in the bridge and like you see the reflection in the window sort of thing, and then it goes to the planet. There's a couple cool things that I thought were really cool. You look like you're gonna say something, Diego.
I thought that this is where part of it's like kind of like a detriment if you've played the games, because it's like you kind of know that the Force is kind of bullshit and you could just do whatever.
Right.
But it was strange to me how directly they took a thing from Force Unleashed, which was Vader taking down the ship with like just
the Force.
Oh yeah, buddy.
That was great.
It was awesome.
And I think it's fine that he didn't just do it again, because you can kind of, hand wave it being like, okay, he's out of mana, like he needs like to recharge.
Right.
So that being said, it feels like as with it always does, that the Force being whatever the writer wants it to be at the time, it's like if Obi-Wan could just like throw a fuck ton of rocks at Vader at any moment, right? Could he? And this is where like the nitpicky stuff is. It's like, having seen that in the previous episode, I feel like this wouldn't be like such a big threat to him. It's like clearly he is the better Force user,
right?
If he's able to take down a fucking ship.
I'm just gonna be honest. We can go down this rabbit hole. Just like, why the fuck are we even using lightsabers in the first place, guys? If we're using Force powers, this might as well turn into like Magneto, like DBZ style fights. And like, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole in terms of the like, oh, I hate that they're using lightsabers, something like that. But like, it's a relevant question that I've heard people bring up before. Like Vader, right? Like when he's fighting Reva, he barely uses a lightsaber unless he wants to.
He doesn't use it.
He's just like,
yeah.
I literally was gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
My favorite fight actually was the Reva like Vader fight.
Right.
Like no cap. honestly, because I thought it was the most like visually interesting fight
Yes.
in a long time.
And the choreography was actually interesting too, right?
Phenomenal.
Because Reva's like trying to do all these things. All right, I'm gonna do the spinny thing. Oh well, fuck, that didn't work. Okay, like I'm gonna do the double. All right, well that didn't work either. Damn it. Like,
Yes.
so
Yeah, that was pretty well executed.
yeah, like for once the choreography was good, and it's good that you brought that up too, Jason, about the prequels, because the prequel is something that people complain about, right? Is that they were over choreographed, right? That looked like dancing instead of fighting. I don't know if I agree with that, but I've heard that criticism before. Whereas if you look at the original trilogy, right, it's a bit more stiff, right? They're just like they're a bit more, but more emotional, sort of thing. And I wonder if they like try to do like a happy medium of the choreography, but with like the stiff to like bridge them. I don't know if that's a fact. That's how it came across to me, because some of like the choreography came across as bizarre. Like I love the last fight with Vader and Obi-Wan, mostly because of the emotion behind it, not necessarily because of the choreography. Like there's the Force
Right.
earthquake, and then there's the Force explosion out, and then there's the Force like rock stampede, and like it was just like I like that's fine. Like because my favorite lightsaber fights are actually the trailers for Star Wars: The Old Republic. I think those are hands down the best lightsaber fights ever. They're so good, and I can't wait until one day we actually see that on screen. But point being though is that like I like the last fight so much because of the emotion behind, not necessarily because of the choreography. Like there's that like when Obi-Wan actually slashes his mask, the way he does it, it's like he like decided to use one leg to jump and was like, "Ugh," and like it like barely grazed. It wasn't even, it didn't even look like a decisive strike sort of thing. But the emotion behind it is so good that like you kind of just ignore it at that point because you're so satisfied with the emotional core of like what the fight itself is. But I have two questions for all of you. One, did you feel like that resonated with you? I know, Jason, you've been kind of critical, so I'm definitely curious to hear your opinion. Um, did you feel like that resonated with you? And then I guess on top of that, right? Did you feel like what you were seeing on screen was representative of what was actually going on, right? Because I think there was a couple really good shots of cinematography that really kind of showed the core of what was going on. But I know some people, again, like Jason, you seem like you're not too big on it overall. So start off with you, Jason. How did you feel about that kind of last fight, and I guess like the core of the emotions, and but as well as this thing surrounding it, the choreography, cinematography, all that stuff.
You're hitting the money on the head with the whole lightsabers kind of being pointless ordeal in terms of like the grand scheme of their power
Right.
usage, but you really just have to like let that exit your
Exactly.
brain
You kind of
because
just like whatever sort of thing.
it's like the Superman thing. Like you can't have an interesting fight with Superman if he could do everything. So like you just
Exactly.
gotta the emotion was there. My favorite part of the battle, and it's not really a part of the battle, is post him slashing his face
Yes.
when he's having that talk. I'm a big audio buff, so I love listening to things. So I thought the mesh of Hayden Christensen's voice and the AI
Yes.
James Earl Jones voice, because I don't
Is
think
it
that's
AI?
actually allegedly it is. It's not actually his voice.
Okay.
They like perfected AI because back in Rogue One and when they did Lion King, his voice
Uh,
sounded old. Like
right.
Is he
he's an old
He is
man.
old. Yeah.
So either he
He's 94 or
94.
some 90
Yeah.
something.
Bless his heart.
He's up there. He's up there for sure.
So the mix of that was perfect. I love
It was so good. Right.
But the fight itself, I kind of was checked out of the show at that point. I was excited to see how it had ended, and only was more disappointed when at the end of that battle, where I'm not gonna get into it again, he should have just
Right.
nicked him.
Sure.
Yeah, the fight itself was fine. When you're saying about the prequels being very light-footed and kind of like a ballet,
Choreographed.
which I
Yeah.
like, mixed with I think the sequels actually did something really cool there. I thought that the sequel, the Disney sequel trilogy, did a cool mix of like light-footedness and weight to the sabers.
No,
Um,
I think the sequel trilogy kinetic, like what I always describe the sequel trilogy as kinetic, right? You can tell they're swinging for the fences, sort of
Right.
thing, whenever they're swinging.
Right.
Sorry,
Right.
keep going.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right on the money. So like, and I guess you can kind of, I forget where I heard this from, but I thought it was a cool like headcanon was the reason why lightsabers are like a Jedi tool is that you need the Force to use them. That might have been a Red Letter Media thing, Diego. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I straight up, yeah, because I heard the same thing like literally like 2
Yes,
days
I
ago.
think it might have been
So
I watched so much in the last like many years, but one of the, yeah, I think it was Red Letter Media. They were saying like maybe you need the Force to use it. So like in the prequels, I mean, the prequels, the original trilogy, it made sense that, well, Vader's old and he's a robot. and Luke is fairly new to the lightsaber, and Obi-Wan was also old in that it is a little heavy for them. In the prequels, they're all on top of their game. Every Jedi is like young, spry, even Yoda, because Yoda was the best lightsaber duelist. They were all pretty light-footed with it. So it kind of made sense, and they were more in tune with the Force back then, because the Force is dying in the OT and the sequels, I guess. I don't know, but so that kind of made sense there. So in this case, yeah, it was a fine fight. Nothing like offensive about it. I felt like some of the Force power stuff was a little like I didn't really like the earthquake.
I think
and
the CG was really what brought me out of it. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that might have been it. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Abby, what'd you think of the last fight between them?
It's not Mustafar.
I mean, what is
it's
Mustafar?
Not Mustafar.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, I thought it was good. I think we needed the previous Vader Obi-Wan fight to show that he was not in ship-shop shape. I think he needed to get his ass beat.
Yeah.
A very eloquent way of saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But we needed that to happen, and I do agree with you. I had goosebumps again with the fire moment. Because me and my dad were texting, and we're like, how long do you think he was plotting that? Like, stewing away. Like, and Anakin was like, ooh, and when I see him, he's going into the fire. Like, we were just like trying to think of like him like plotting that for so long. So I thought that was fun. But I actually do think production design, I agree that it was hit or miss. But you know me, I love stage combat and I love choreography.
Mm-hmm.
And I do actually think the Reyna Vader was the most impressive visually in the entire show. Like, it wasn't even Obi-Wan or Vader, which I think is, I don't know if that's just because I thought it was a different perspective that we haven't really seen before in a fight, and why I thought it so intriguing. Or just how good Vader is, and that is him in his prime, and to see him like that is so engaging.
Right.
But yeah, I was not oohing and ahhing over the rocks. I was not in awe. I don't know. The thing that got me the most, I guess, awe, like even Jason said, was actually the audio design. After the fight, I was like, wow. But the fight itself, I was like, okay, cool. And Hayden and Ewan love stage combat. Well, that's, I thought, and of course with their stage combat and their fight captains are, shout out to the crew, but like you can tell them as actors, the combat is an extension of the character.
Yes.
100% for them. And you can see that respected, because I think some actors, and definitely don't want to say don't marvelize my Star Wars. I was like, okay, I saw that on Twitter. I was like, okay. But I do agree that there are a lot of actors who are like, okay, that is my stunt double, and then I am the character.
Right.
But then I think they do believe that it's unification between the two. And you have to, because the character is an extension of the combat.
I mean, even the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the flashback is actually pretty good. Obviously, it's like a training session sort of thing.
I did like the flashback.
It's a training session, obviously, but like the way, like you said, it's a character study, right? About Anakin's aggression, his needs, his at its root, he's such an insecure person, right? He needs to prove himself always, assert complete dominance, and even in his fight with Reva, that's like he could have taken out Reva at any point, right? But he needed to show her how outclassed that she was in order to show his dominance, right? And that, like, I am so good sort of thing. But that's his inner insecurity, right? Of just like, he needs to prove himself to Reva. He needs to prove himself to the Emperor. He needs to prove himself to Obi-Wan, right? I'm better than you. Like, that last time I lost was a fluke, whatever it is. And so I actually agree with you, Abby, and Jason, in the fact that the fight itself is fine. It's not like amazing, but the character moment after the fight is so good with the audio, like you said. The thing that really struck me was the visuals, right? How Anakin's face, when it's only half of it is shown, right? And how it's blue, but when he goes to say that, what's it called? Like, Anakin is dead or something, right? Like Vader killed him, and then it turns red because the illumination of his lightsaber. I was like, this is really, really fucking good sort of thing in terms of the audio and visuals and how we're trying to tell that through the story, through that medium, instead of just telling it, like, just like, yes, Vader is here now, sort of thing.
Yeah,
it was super well done, and I think that's probably one of the best scenes of the series, and honestly, I think one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars, just the way that confrontation happens. But Diego, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Quick, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. The show.
Hold on, get closer to the mic. Your sound levels are low.
Oh, the show kind of. Oh, here we go. The show kind of stole from itself, though. Diego, you might be able to comment on this. Rebels did the same shtick with like the half face with him. Spoiler alert, warning, with Ahsoka. So like they
See,
did
I
it
was about to
before.
ask about this. I was about to ask about that. So Diego,
Cool.
I was going to ask you, right? Like, because you've seen Rebels, how does this confrontation compare to Anakin's or Vader's confrontation with Ahsoka, right? Because it's kind of the same idea. These are the two people who are closest to Anakin. Also, I've actually said this to Diego. After watching Clone Wars, I feel like Anakin is closer to Ahsoka and Obi-Wan more than he was ever close to Padme. Even though Padme is his main motivation for so much of the suit. But that's a different argument. So how do you feel like they compare, right? Because they're similar things, right? Ghosts of Anakin's past coming back to confront him, ghosts of when he was on the light side, right? Like sort of thing. Now that he's fully embraced the dark side, sort of thing. So how do you feel like they compared overall?
So, well, first, like as far as like character moments go, I think like that this stuff, like I agree, it's the best when it's done in a way that's like it serves the characters, right? Like the fight honestly was okay. It was not one of the better lightsaber duels, but with all that stuff happening and then like again the sound mixing and like all that was fucking incredible, and it really leaves an impression. So is again like I wish they did more of that. And with what I said earlier about like I saw this coming a mile away, because it's like, okay, if you're gonna bring back Hayden Christensen, you are not gonna have him not speak when he is Darth Vader. And like after I watched the first episode, like the next day I was talking to my dad about it, or the first two episodes because they premiered together, and I was like, yeah, they're probably gonna do what they did in Rebels with when he fought Ahsoka, was just like his eye is gonna be visible and it's gonna go from blue to red and then back or whatever, and you're gonna hear the voice actor like, or you're gonna hear Hayden like you could hear the voice actor for Anakin in the Clone Wars, and it was exactly that, just like where instead of his right eye, it was his left eye.
Oh, okay.
So that was the only difference in the two scenes. But despite how like, you know, they transplanted, like again, this is a thing they transplanted. Yeah. Despite how derivative it is, I don't think it actually cheapened it at all, because it is earned. Like he is as close to Obi-Wan as he is to Ahsoka. And it would make sense that like if anyone is going to make if anyone is going to make Anakin like be visible for a moment, like as fleeting as it is, it's going to be like either Ahsoka or Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one moment where I'm like, I mean, like I still wish we didn't get here, but I'm still like I'm more than okay with it. Like I love the scene.
Right.
Like I thought it was great. And to also a thing that was done better in Rebels, just separately, was and I think my overall favorite lightsaber duel was between Darth Maul and Ben Kenobi in Rebels. And it is, I won't say much, but it is entirely only a character thing.
Right.
So
what I'll also say before we wrap things up just about this last fight is that I want to echo what Abby said in terms of like you could tell that Hayden and Ewan are giving it their all in terms of like not only the choreography obviously, but also just acting. Like again, what Hayden is doing with like so little of his face to say those things and express, like you could see the anger, the rage in his eyes, sort of thing. And I think that's so hard to pull off. And again, it just goes to show that like both of them didn't really get a fair shake in the prequels, right? When it came to the material that they were working with. But in this one, again, we've talked about the inconsistencies, but it does give them a bit more time to flex and kind of show, one, how much they love these characters, but also what they can do with these characters. And so in that way, I'm pretty grateful overall. And the cinematographer is actually, I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, is Chung Hoon Chung, who did Old Boy, the Korean version, as well as Last Night in Soho and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl sort of thing.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I never realized that this guy did an Old Boy.
Yeah, Old Boy 2003, which is one of my favorite movies ever. So clearly someone who knows what they're kind of doing. That's all I really wanted to say before we wrap things up. Is there anything that any of you guys wanted to say? Any last things you want to talk about? I don't know. Maybe one of you are a really big fan of Kumail Nanjiani or of Lola or something like that. I don't know if there's anything else y'all want to really
justice
talk
for
about.
Lola, the ladybug robot.
I can't believe the whole like, oh, we know that it's evil because the lights are red now. It's like, oh god, come on.
But it's cute.
Wait, quick thing on that. with the tracker also like manipulates the intentions of
The
the bot.
brain.
So a consistent thing is that like restraining
Right.
bolt, right? I think it was a misnomer. It's just like technically it is a tracker, but I think they should have been calling it like some bolt
Mhm.
of some sort, because that's the only thing that would alter a droid's
Right.
like, behavior core. I hate that I know all these details, but
We appreciate it. We
No,
need
it's good. It's
I,
good.
I actually just remembered one more thing that I just want to get y'all thoughts. How'd y'all feel about Reva confronting Owen? And I always forget what the aunt's name is.
Baru.
Baru.
Aunt Baru.
Baru, and then obviously Luke later on in the canon. I felt like this kind of came out of left field. She was just like,
dude,
it was just like, oh wait, there's a kid. I'm gonna go kill him for justice or something. I was like, wait, what?
She's gotta kill all the kids.
It was weird, but what would you all think about that?
dude, I was not expecting any of that to happen. I mean, like how it happened, right?
Mhm.
Like I was not expecting Lars to do all that. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like this motherfucker pulled out 2 Glocks from the fucking outlet,
Uh-huh.
and they just like fought this Inquisitor. It was really cool.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. Like that scene is something that like I felt was like, if I think back on it, it sounds really stupid.
Sure.
But like actually watching it again, it was cool. Like I can appreciate it.
It does also kind of show like right, something that they brought up too is like Luke is not even biologically their kid. Like I like it's pretty far
No, he's
removed sort
not.
of thing.
Yeah.
But you could tell that
Yeah,
they
they're like distant cousins. or
yeah, like
something.
you could tell that they both really care about Luke. Like you could see the love, and even though Owen likes to complain to Ben and all that other stuff, but like there's a clear love for their child sort of thing. They treat him as their own, which is something that we didn't really get a chance to see, unfortunately, in episode 4 in a New Hope. So I'm glad it got a bit more fleshed out there. Go ahead, Diego.
Yeah, and because you were saying earlier, like near the beginning, you mentioned something about the what's his name?
Joel
The
Edgerton.
actor's
Joel
name.
Edgerton.
Joel. Yeah, dude, this guy fucking killed it. And I was gonna say like he should have been in more of the show. I mean, if you know who knows what the original script looked like, but it really felt like he had more of a role than he ended up having. It's still significant, and it's like I forgot the one line he said where he's like he is my own or whatever. Like I thought every scene that he was a part of was just like he elevated it.
I even like when he like goes toe to toe with Reva, like he didn't even like flinch sort of thing. He was just like, nope, I ain't got nothing to hide, no sort of thing. Like it was great. He's so good.
Yeah, and I forget where I read this, but apparently like there was some like I don't know if it was a Legends thing or it's just like some established canon about like how he's actually like secretly a badass or something. Like there was some off on the sideline somewhere about like how he can hold his own against a bunch of Tusken Raiders. In a way that was like, yeah, this motherfucker is crazy.
You don't live out in the boonies and not know how to defend yourself.
You kind of have to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like him and his wife just like fuck shit up. And like granted like Reva was injured, but it was still like goddamn, like there was no he knows what she was, right? He still didn't hesitate. Like he didn't know that she wasn't injured.
Right. They were shooting to kill,
So.
that's for sure.
And I think that also showed that the twins had really, and I think that's kind of what the ending episode did, is that you saw that the Organas loved Leia. Like she was the princess. She was so adored. And she was, I mean, it's just so funny. Even there were memes about like, oh, Leia's a princess and then Luke's a redneck. Like, or like, well, how is that fair?
Oh my God.
How is that fair? But it's like, oh, but he had love, and they obviously would die for him. Obviously, your adopted parents are your parents. And so I think Obi-Wan, I don't want to say he needed to see them going so hard for Luke, but I think he did almost need to see it because it was a way of showing like, oh, they would, and I know he knew that, but they would not have been better with Anakin. They would not have been better with Anakin and Padme. I mean, Padme's dead, but like they are where they need to be.
Right.
Everything
worked out.
Yes, and it's maybe not exactly how we wanted, but like they are where they need to be, and they're with people who love them, and they will have a good childhood. And I think that was really important for him to see. And I think I do with Reyna. I to say like it came out of left field. It did come out of left field, but I get if she's on this extremist path, then it's like all right. the man who killed all, like, very direct, right? Almost fanficky, where it's like, the man who killed all my friends when I was a child, he had children he wasn't supposed to. I'm going to go after that child.
Right.
You know, I get that. Did it feel right? Not really, but like,
I
yeah,
think what makes it worse is how quick it happened, like we mentioned before. She
yeah,
just got stabbed by the lightsaber, and then we see off screen that she somehow got up onto another starship somewhere, then flew to
yeah.
Tatooine, then
No,
gathered
it
the
was very
intelligence.
fast.
It was just like, whoa, this is just like what happened in fucking Dark Knight Rises when Batman yanks his back up and somehow climbs out of a pit and then somehow flies back to Gotham. It's like, whoa, what is
Wow.
happening? Sorry. I,
And my final Luke note, though, I know, yeah, I
yeah,
agreed,
go ahead.
very fast. My final Luke note, though, was that we do see the remember, okay, like, Ben gets to talk more with Luke and get to be that crazy old guy next door, which
Right.
is like where A New Hope begins with their relationship. But also, I thought the even the X-wing
Mm-hmm.
gift
Right.
that we see Luke play with at the beginning of A New Hope
Mm-hmm.
when he's fiddling around in his room is the same one that Ben gave. Those like little fan servicey moments that are very sweet but very specific.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where these TV shows and these miniseries really shine.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, for me, it isn't these big, huge matchups. I think it's these sweet, small world building moments
Right.
that make the overall series richer. Like for me, again, talking about continuality, but I think of Leia naming her son Ben.
Mm-hmm.
That feels nicer now. Because
Right.
now, afterwards, the sequels, we were like, why'd she name after Ben? She just knew him and he died. What the?
Yeah.
Now we're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. So I do have to say, I think that kind of makes things more equitable in my mind of
Sure.
those moments.
Sure. Jason, anything you want to add about, I guess, that last scene before we wrap things up?
Sure. Yeah, wait, one quick thing about Dark Knight Rises' ridiculousness. So Batman crawls out of the cave, back broken, gets back to Gotham, and also gets a bunch of kerosene
Yeah.
to make a bat signal, and then get it all the way to line up on that ice river thing just so they can light it up. Dumb. The what you were harkening back to about Uncle, oh my God, Lars.
Owen?
Owen.
Owen Lars. Yeah.
He's like an allegory for like Joseph and like Christianity. Like he's like the surrogate father, which I
Right.
find like really, because like he's not his kid, but he's gonna take care of him,
Right.
and like this kid is basically gonna be God or like a Jesus figure. So I
Right.
always found that interesting. When it came to them deciding to run, once they heard that Reva's coming or an Inquisitor is coming to kill them,
Right.
there's a short moment where Owen and Beru like talk about it, and Owen's like, we gotta go. Like,
Right.
we're obviously no match. And then Beru is like, no, we fight. While I like the sentiment that like stand your ground, and then the fight between Owen and Reva was actually really great. I'll give
Right.
props to that. Still, I think they should have ran. Like, and they're still staying in Tatooine, knowing that, again, leaving Reva alive, knowing because they don't know her turn, unless I guess maybe Obi-Wan tells them like Reva's cool now, don't worry about her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they have this kid that everyone's searching for, and they're staying in the same place. And I don't know who told me this, but this is a mind blow. Why did they keep the last name Skywalker? That's like a big giveaway that there's a Skywalker in Tatooine. So if Darth Vader finds out there's a Skywalker, go there. Like that's where your old family was, and potentially your kid.
Maybe their logic is that, like, you know how like there are so many people with the last name Smith
Okay,
in a galaxy. They're like, there's got to be other Skywalker somewhere, right? Like maybe there's multiple on
change the
Tatooine.
name. Like, for the sake of just safety, change the name.
I just want to go back
yeah.
to what Diego said. One is that Star Wars writing kind of bad, and also
Continuity is
want to go
nothing.
back to what Abby said. All is as the Force wills it. Sorry, keep going, Jason.
No, that's all. I agree. Continuity is nothing. So I really just gotta get that out of my brain. Maybe I'll like the show. Otherwise, the writing's still below mid for me. Yeah. It was fine. Whatever.
Well, I mean, you're already on it, so I guess like closing thoughts and final ratings, man. Is there anything else you want to say to kind of wrap things up? And what would be your final rating for the show?
Very unneeded. Complicates things. Aggravates like motives for characters. Kind of demeans characters as a whole. This is like a moment in like the Disney Star Wars era where they wanted to give us something that we kind of wanted, and they just made it worse. Like they purposely just made it worse. They the connections, like same with Mando, like Mando season 2. While I liked it more than Boba Fett, it did that whole thing where it kind of corners itself in this universe where like it's basically just cameo fest. And then bring Luke into it, kind of just once you get Luke in Mando 2, there's nowhere to go from there. To a point where even Boba Fett had to bring back Luke because like Luke is the end all be all in this canon because Legends doesn't matter anymore. That extended universe doesn't matter. So like they kind of corner themselves, and in this case, they just wrote themselves into a discontinuity mess, and it wasn't that great. So I give it a 2. I'd give it a 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. Okay. All right. Diego, how about you?
Oh man. Can I go last?
Sure. Okay. Abby, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, we're jumping up. That's like it's a 7 for me. So it was like more than average. Very fun. I like had fun. Was it great? Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Was there a lot of things that needed help? Yes. Again, going back to that phone level 0, was I enthralled? Did I watch every week? Yes. Did I not know what was happening? Yes. Did not know what way it was going to turn. Were there lots of very sweet, potent moments that I think spoke to the overall series? Yes. Yeah. I'm curious again what we talked about a bit with Qui-Gon, and I am also actually in the camp that I don't think it needs a season 2. I think that's getting into a bit of like a silly territory, in my opinion. I don't know where they're gonna go. Like I even said at the beginning of this podcast, like this, I was like, all right, we did that, but then I'm like, I really don't know where we would go in a season 2, and I guess maybe more Qui-Gon, but I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't think Liam Neeson wants to do that. So it's just, I don't see I think there's so many other stories to be told in the universe that I would rather put our energy into than doing a season 2 of this. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about that, Abby. I'm sure that Liam Neeson didn't want to do Taken 3, and then he saw the paycheck, and he was like, okay.
And then he was like, all right.
He was like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. It was just like me and Diego when we saw the trailer for this.
You're like, all right. Yeah.
What's the equivalent, the Star Wars equivalent of that, like 47 take shot or whatever?
The fence? You're talking about the fence scene?
Yeah, the fence.
The fence, yeah. What is this show's moment that is like
I don't think
that?
anything's as bad as 47 takes. 47 takes is a lot.
I don't know. I don't think it had that issue where it was too many takes, too many cuts, but
but something as ridiculous as that, I guess it would just be the chase scene, right?
Oh yeah,
the chase scene was so goofy.
Both chase scenes are all, like Obi-Wan's trying to chase this girl around in like what's Space Hong Kong, like, and no one can catch, like you're all adults, like she's like 7. This shouldn't be that difficult. Like
every 3 strides for her is 1 adult stride.
Like,
yeah.
Gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast.
All right, Diego.
It's hard because I can't give it a numerical value.
That's okay.
It is worse than I had feared, but also better than I was expecting.
It's very poetic.
Yeah.
Because they fucking it's hard because it's impossible to go into this without any expectations.
Of course,
like we were saying, like I like having just watched Boba Fett and I was like so fucked up about it. I'm like, I felt like I was about to watch like the best show so far, and then just like as soon as episode 3 finished, I was like, oh no. And just like when it came to watching this show's trailer and they fucking hooked me in with Duel of the Fates, I'm like, I know I'm falling for it, and I know it's gonna disappoint me, but it's gonna happen,
right?
And it did. So really, at the end of the day, whose fault is it? It's fucking mine.
Sure.
That's why I canceled my Disney Plus subscription after I finished the last episode. Because I'm not gonna fall for this shit again. That being said, I did very much enjoy it. It was like every week it was like, oh, it's Wednesday. I'm very excited to go and watch the show and see what happens. and I think it's great that we got to see more of Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, and then it's like some fresh stuff's thrown in there. But I really hate how it turned up, because I think there's like two camps of the people who enjoyed the show, and it's like just like Star Wars fans, and there's like nothing wrong with this. It's just like people who like thought Return of the Jedi was going to be the last Star Wars anything ever, and then suddenly prequels came out. They're excited to see that, and they don't care about how it was. And
Sure.
then like Revenge of the Sith comes out, people are like, "Yep, that's the last Star Wars anything ever, at all." And then suddenly the sequel movies happen. It's just like, oh wow, there's like these 3 new movies and there's like these shows and stuff, like more Star Wars, like that's awesome. And I'm really happy for the people that can enjoy stuff like that. I fucking hate fun. I despise fun. It's not for me. I want suffering.
Yes.
So
What an edgelord. Sorry.
So I'm in the camp that has enjoyed the show, but I need to pick it apart endlessly because I know how much better something the Star Wars could be.
Right.
Because I've experienced it. But it's also just hard because this is like the prequels are like up there, right? It's like my childhood. It's very like I have entire value systems based on Star Wars, and that comes from enjoying the prequels. So I'm going to give this one a fuck me. Why does this exist out of 10?
I can say that that's a historic long run podcast first. No one's ever given a rating like that before. So
no, they have not.
Diego has certainly made history on this podcast. I mean, we just spent 3 hours talking about this, so I'll try to be quick. Basically, I think there's a lot of really good things about this show, and we talked. I think the performances by Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen are great. I love Princess Leia's actor, who I'm forgetting, but I think her performance is great. And even like, there's no performances I think are awful. I think the characters are always fine. The actors are always good. It's always the writing and like the premises that is where the show falters. And I've already talked about, there's so many times in the show I'm just like, I don't know what y'all are thinking, how that even got past, like, oh yeah, this is great, go ahead, like got the green light sort of thing. But there's also some really, really great moments that I definitely am happy that I saw personally, and that we were able to experience that as fans. So I think that in some ways it's worse than Boba Fett. In some ways it's better than Boba Fett. It has higher highs, but also lower lows. So for me, honestly, I'd have to give it a rental. I think that this is something that if you're a big Star Wars fan, you should definitely check out. But if you're not, you're not really missing all that much, to be quite honest with you. I'll say this: I'm getting real fucking sick and tired of like where Star Wars is at the moment. In the sense of like, we always go back to the same fucking characters and the same fucking, like, can we like please just like, we're done with the Skywalkers. Can we please go to a different era, like the Old Republic or Abby? I know in the previous EU, you're a big fan of like super post, like the Skywalkers, and, like the grandchildren and stuff. Like,
give me Jada and Jason. Where are they?
Like can we just get away? Like, I feel like we're in the same neighborhood for like 50 years at this point. Like, I'm
Mara Jade.
Like,
where is
Mara
she?
Jade, where is my redhead queen?
Like, my God, like, can we please just evolve and leave this stuff behind? And I get, like, I totally understand that people are excited, and that's totally okay. Like Diego said, if this is for you and you enjoy it, that's fine. But I think that's where I'm at when it comes to Star Wars. Is just like, I'm kind of just sick and tired of us always having to go to the same well and be like, hey, remember Luke Skywalker? Remember that?
You're
like,
back on Tatooine, baby.
Yeah. Oh, Tatooine again? Oh wait, no. This time it's Jakku. It's a different desert planet. It's like, oh my God, guys. I think it's
like poetry. It rhymes.
Jar Jar, he's the key. So I think that's kind of where I am. I don't know if they need a creative shakeup, like maybe Kathleen Kennedy, like, takes a bow and they get someone else. I don't know what the solution is, to be honest with you. Maybe Dave Filoni.
What does she even do? I feel like she's like racist YouTubers like Boogeyman.
Probably, but she's supposed to be the head of Lucasfilm sort of thing. I just think they need a Kevin Feige-esque person, and that's easier said than done. Like, literally, there's only one of a kind, like Kevin Feige. Everyone else has tried to emulate it and failed. So it's obviously easier said than done. But
I mean, Filoni could be that
guy. I would love for Filoni to be that guy, but I don't know if he wants to be it. And the other thing I'll say is something that I echoed before, and I know, Abby, you mentioned it too. What people have done to actors like Moses Ingram and other actors involved with Star Wars, like, unacceptable, inexcusable. Fuck off with that. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, do not do that. There's no reason to do anything like that. But that's all again, it's a rental overall. But of course, that ends this review. I want to thank all the people, Jason, Abby, and Diego, for coming on to the show. But before we go, of course, start with you, Diego. Is there any shout outs you give, any words you want to say to the people? How can they follow you?
Oh God. Well, my Twitter's on private right now because I'm trying to apply for a social media job, and I would hate for them to look at my Twitter right
Okay.
now. But it is at StormSoldat.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't know. I got nothing. Thank you, Adam, for having me on.
Thank you for coming on, man.
I could talk to you for about this show exactly for about 6 more hours, but you have a life.
We all have lives.
I don't.
Yes, you
I don't quite yet.
Yes, you do.
Okay, but I don't actually got to be up for work in 6 hours, so I could keep talking about it. But either way, I love and appreciate you, Adam, and you're an amazing person.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Retweet.
I appreciate you, Diego.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot. Abby, any words you want to say to the people? Any shout outs you want to give? How can the people follow you?
Huge Adam fan. Thank you, Adam, always for having me on. I love being
Aw.
here. It's always good time. You have good people. You have good taste in people. Good taste in shows. I am Abby_Sherlock, ABBY_SHERLOCK on all social media platforms. And I love Star Wars, so thank you for having me. At the core of it, like us talking about this so in depth for so long, I think just shows the power that this franchise holds.
Mm-hmm. I retweet for sure. Retweet for sure. And last but certainly not least, the man we've waited for 6 years to finally see back, Jason. It's a pleasure, of course. Any shout outs you want to give, words you want to say to the people? How can they follow you? How can they see what you're doing? Because you're doing some cool stuff out there in LA.
Before I gush about my love for you, Adam, and how happy I am that we were able to reconnect, I want to mention one thing. If they do another Star Wars series, you got to get some redemption for Jar Jar. There got to be some Jedi Jar Jar going on. For those that can't see, because I think this is an audio podcast, I have a
Right.
Jedi Jar Jar. Make that a thing. But no, thank you so much for having me. It's been 6 years, which blows my mind. I'm so happy we were able to reconnect, and I'd love to talk to you after this for hours on end. You could find me at Turn Your Jasoff, TURNURJASOFF, kind of like Jason Jasoff. It's a dumb joke. No one ever gets it. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to do more. If you'd love to have me back, I'd love to be back.
Dude, listen, the Andor show is coming out, so
I'll watch
we'll do a review on that.
I'll pick it up apart.
And we'll have you, of course, your social media in the description. You know, whenever you're doing shows, man, let the people know so that they can come out and see you.
Yes, if anyone's in the LA area, come on by. I have a few shows at Fresh Fish Comedy, at 2Q Brothers, and at Show and Tell, at Show Tell Show. Yeah, come on by if anyone's in the LA area. Free shows and free drinks and free good times.
If I ever make the esports mandated pilgrimage to LA again,
Diego, yes, yeah.
I'll definitely try to make my way out there, man, just to see you and support you. Also, fun fact, I forgot to mention this before. Jason is actually was one of the people I saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens when it first came out. There's a picture of us. We went to IHOP at like 5 a.m. It's a great memory.
You have the photo? I don't have the photo.
I have the photo. I'll post it in the chat. It's a great photo.
So sweet.
Please send that.
So me and Jason go way back for sure.
Real quick, speaking of Andor, I am not fucking resubscribing. So Adam, you're coming over and we're gonna watch it together.
Watch party.
Watch party indeed.
Watch party.
Of course, I want to give a big shout out to, of course, the people who came on. I appreciate all of you coming on for 3 hours of your very, very valuable time. We're all adults, so we're all busy, but always means the world. And of course, anyone who listens to or watches this episode of the podcast, couldn't thank you all enough for the support. I know we're a little sporadic with our uploads, but we're going to try and be as consistent as we possibly can. Next review is probably going to be Stranger Things or Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm not sure which one, but we'll definitely try to get those in the bag.
Oh shit, Thor's coming out.
Thor's coming out. Our boy Taika, he's back. And if you want to follow me, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Bomb with 2 M's. Of course, follow and subscribe to the podcast on all your favorite platforms, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Support the show if you can. I'm not really asking for money, but like, I think that for us, like we don't do this for that, and we just love talking about the things that we love with the people that we love, and we're always grateful for people who want to tune in. But until then, see you guys until the next episode. I actually forget how I usually conclude these, but take care of yourselves and peace out.